Chapter 1055. Chu Yang was still asleep. He dreamed that he was being beaten, touching his buttocks and crying out in pain. But he was woken up by the sound of firecrackers. He got up and muttered, "This is my first appearance in the upper three heavens, and I actually caused such a big commotion." He put on his clothes quickly and walked to the courtyard to wash his face with cold water. He looked at the dark clouds in the sky, as if it was going to snow. He couldn't help but murmur, "It's rare for me to be arrogant. Even the heavens want to celebrate with snow." The curtains opened and Zi Sheqing came out. She scolded, "Pig. You've been snoring all night. Even the room is shaking." Chu Yang put on a straight face. "Big Sister Zi, your image today is that of a senior expert. You have to watch your words." Zi Sheqing squinted and said, "Don't you have morning exercises?" Chu Yang put on a long face. "Big Sister, I still want to be arrogant today. Please don't disfigure me." Zi Sheqing laughed. "Okay, I'll let you off today." She left victoriously. Chu Yang muttered a few more curses and continued to wash his face. The door of the orchard palace opened. A little girl in a snow-white marten coat walked out. She was Chu Le. Chu Le's delicate little face was hidden in the long fur of the marten coat. Her pair of black eyes were rolling around. She was indescribably cute and weird. Then, Minister Chu neatly walked out of the room. He was dressed in black, and his figure was tall and slender. His face was like jade, and his eyes were like stars. His hair was meticulously combed, and an amethyst crown was neatly placed on his head. It made his face look like jade, and he was extraordinarily handsome. He walked out step by step. His back was straight and his expression was proud. A long sword hung at his waist and his hand was on the sword hilt. His gaze was arrogant and insufferably arrogant. Chu Le, who came out first, turned and saw Chu Yang's unprecedentedly serious look. She couldn't help but laugh. "Don't laugh," Chu Yang said seriously. "It wasn't easy for me to keep a straight face. Don't make me laugh." "Ha ha ha." Chu Le held her stomach and laughed loudly. She almost rolled on the ground. Then, Zi Sheqing, dressed in white, her hair was tied up high. She walked out calmly. There seemed to be a white light lingering around her body. Her face couldn't be seen clearly, but she still wore a veil and her white clothes fluttered. She walked quietly on the road, but it felt like she was floating in the clouds. It was full of mysterious power and unattainable holiness and nobility. Her gaze was calm and indifferent, but no matter who she looked at, anyone would feel that this gaze could directly freeze their soul. She walked out calmly, but even Chu Yang and Chu Le, who were already very familiar with her, were shocked by her power at this moment. He didn't even dare to speak to her. "Let's go," Zi Sheqing said faintly and led the way. Chu Yang hurriedly pulled Chu Le and followed after her. They arrived at the first street. People were coming and going on the street, and everyone was in a hurry. However, the moment the three of them appeared, the people themselves didn't know why, but they obediently opened up a path for them. Chu Yang wanted to take advantage of the situation. He wanted to be arrogant. He wanted to intimidate others. So, how could he let go of this opportunity? With her head held high and her chest puffed out, she pulled Chu Le and hurriedly walked a few steps forward. She changed her position and caught up with Zi Sheqing, walking side by side. But, with Chu Le on his right and Zi Sheqing on his left, Chu Yang actually became the focus of attention. Instantly, he looked around disdainfully and arrogantly. He strode forward majestically and murderously. Secretly, Zi Sheqing rolled her eyes. This guy is really thick-skinned. Dong Wushang and the other two brothers were waiting for him at an even bigger intersection. They saw Chu Yang walking over with a majestic gait. The two brothers rubbed their eyes in disbelief as they saw him walking over with a domineering aura. What the heck? Boss is actually doing so well in the upper three heavens. Chu Yang waved his hand and the three hurriedly came over. Chu Yang introduced them. "These two are my brothers. This burly, powerful and domineering one is called Dong Wushang. The skinny one is called Rui Butong. As for the other one, she is my sister-in-law. Wushang, Butong, this is Big Sister Zi. This is my younger sister, Le. Dong Wushang and Rui Butong hurriedly bowed. Zi Sheqing nodded lightly. Then, she carefully sized up the two of them and couldn't help but be shocked. With Zi Sheqing's cultivation and insight, she naturally could tell that Dong Wushang and Rui Butong were not ordinary. It was precisely because of this that she was so shocked. Where did Chu Yang get these two brothers from? They were really not simple. This one called Rui Butong was obviously a half-awakened phoenix, and this one called Dong Wushang was a genuine human. But his bones and meridians had all been transformed into saber bones and saber meridians. One could imagine that in the infinite future, this Dong Wushang's achievements would definitely be earth-shattering. And that girl in black, she was also a unique character with a limitless future. After looking at the three of them, Zi Sheqing couldn't help but praise, Chu Yang, these brothers of yours are really not simple. Chu Yang smiled proudly and said, of course. Why don't you see whose brothers they are? Zi Sheqing smiled lightly. On the other side, Rui Butong was already talking to Chu Le. Chu Le. Haha, you are my boss's younger sister, so you are also my younger sister. I'll call you Le in the future, okay? Chu Le widened her eyes and said, indeed, you look like a bird. Dong Wushang and Mo Lei at the side immediately burst into laughter. Rui Butong's face was full of black lines. He said, you're just a little skinnier. Actually, you don't look like a bird. Don't listen to your big brother's nonsense. Look, these arms, these legs, this body. Which part of them looks like a bird? Chu Le sized him up and said affirmatively, they do look like a bird. Rui Butong's face was full of tears. As they walked, Chu Yang's team became bigger and bigger. Nangong Shifeng led his brothers and followed behind valiantly. Immediately, at the next intersection, Wan Renjie and his two brothers also joined the team. And so, the team became even more majestic. After a while, Wei Wuyan appeared quietly like a ghost. He didn't say anything. He quietly followed at the back of the team. The team walked forward majestically. All the passers-by looked sideways. In front was the auction hall. The front of the auction hall was heavily guarded. There was a dazzling array of clothes in various colors. Chu Yang and the others were walking forward vigorously. Chu Yang was right in front, striding forward like a lord. He walked like a crab, rampaging everywhere. Everyone who saw this couldn't help but look askance. Who is this? Fuck, he's so arrogant. Of course, Chu Yang occupied the center position. On his left was Zi Sheqing, and on his right was Chu Le. Behind them were Dong Wushang and his two brothers, followed by Wan Renjie and his two brothers. Then, Nangong Shifeng and his brothers followed with pride and arrogance on their ugly faces. Finally, Wei Wuyan, dressed in black, followed. Like a ghost that didn't exist, he followed silently. Majestic and awe-inspiring. Haha, little brother Chu. Before they got close, a group of people appeared from the side. The leader was tall and straight, with a hale and hearty expression. He was dressed in stone-green clothes. He was from the Shi clan. The leader was actually the second grandmaster of the Shi clan, Shi Jing. At this moment, the one who greeted Chu Yang was also him. Little brother Chu, you're here so early, haha, elder Shi, you're not late either. Chu Yang smiled reservedly. He nodded politely. This scene instantly shocked the surrounding people, as well as Wan Renjie and the rest who followed behind. Who is this person? The old ancestor of the Shi family. What did he call Chu Yang? Little brother? For a moment, Wan Renjie and his two brothers were a little dizzy. They looked at each other blankly. What's going on? Shi Jing went closer to Chu Yang very intimately. He laughed and asked, these few people are? Chu Yang laughed heartily and introduced in a candid manner, Elder Shi, allow me to introduce you. This is my brother, surnamed Dong. The one beside him is his wife. That's also my brother, surnamed Rui. This is Wan Renjie, my big brother Wan. He introduced them at great length, except for Chu Le and Zi Sheqing. Shi Jing knew Chu Le, but he didn't know Zi Sheqing. His eyes flashed. This is, Chu Yang laughed and said, let's go in and see what good things are in this black blood forest, ha ha ha. Shi Jing understood and smiled. Let's go, we're early, let's go in quickly. But there was already some reluctance and fear in his smile. It turned out that this powerful person had also come to this auction. Shi Jing's legs turned to jelly instantly. Everyone entered the auction hall. This auction hall was indeed huge. There was a huge space, and in mid-air, there was a high platform. There was a circle of rooms around the hall. The hall was 150 feet high, and every 10 feet was a floor of rooms. There were a total of 15 floors, and each floor had 100 rooms. On the highest floor of the 15th floor, there were only slightly more than 20 huge rooms. Chu Yang, Shi Jing, and the rest all walked up. They remembered very clearly. Chu Yang's room was the third room of the human class. And the room that Shi Jing went to was the first room of the earth class. Obviously, it was of a higher class than Chu Yang's room. Because of this higher class, Shi Jing was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He apologized to Chu Yang again and again, and Chu Yang assured him that everything was fine and that he wouldn't blame him. Only then did Shi Jing wipe his cold sweat and leave. He felt that he was unlucky. All the big clans had come to participate. Why was he so lucky to meet this killing god? Of course, he wasn't worried about Chu Yang. He was worried about Zi Sheqing, who was beside Chu Yang. Even the Dharma Supreme couldn't afford to offend this woman. How could he be her match? If she felt uncomfortable because his room was better than hers, then the whole Shi clan would probably feel uncomfortable as well. After everyone entered the room, they waited for a while more before all the big clans participating in the auction gradually arrived. In the private room of the Shi clan. Elder Master, should we inform the other big clans about this news? Someone asked tentatively. This powerful person must have come to buy elixirs for her disciple. But we don't have to make it public. Shi Jing said with his eyes half closed. The other clans can offend her and compete with her, but that has nothing to do with the Shi clan. Yes. The Shi clan disciple retreated. Shi Jing's eyelids twitched. He thought to himself, how can I just let the elder be frightened alone? The other clans have to suffer as well, and let me gloat over your misfortune. Otherwise, wouldn't I have suffered all this for nothing? Begging for monthly votes. To be continued. Chapter 1056. The surrounding rooms were noisy for a while before they quietened down. Everyone was basically familiar with each other. Even if they weren't, they had heard of each other. Basically, everyone knew who was in each room. Therefore, there was no need to keep their identities a secret in an auction like this. In some rooms, the curtains were pulled open and the auction was carried out openly. Only 3 of the 5 rooms in the heaven category were occupied. The other 2 were empty. The first room in the heaven category was undoubtedly occupied by the Dharma Supreme and the people from the law enforcement headquarters. The second room was naturally occupied by Bu Liuqing and Mo Qingwu. The third room was even more unsurprisingly occupied by the Moon Breeze couple. There were 5 rooms in each of the Earth category and Human category rooms. Other than Chu Yang, who occupied the third room, the other big clans had 1 room each. However, the room that belonged to the Lan clan was empty. Lan Muxue was trying his best to recuperate. He only had 2 supreme martial artists under him, who were like generals without an army. They also had to protect him, so they couldn't come. Therefore, there were only 8 big clans. In the second room in the heaven category, Mo Qingwu was dressed in red. She rested her cheeks on her hands, sulking. After a long while, she finally asked, "Teacher, will big brother Chu Yang come or not?" Bu Liuqing said with certainty, "Your big brother Chu Yang will definitely not come." He thought to himself, for an event of this scale, your big brother Chu Yang is only a small fry now. How can he be qualified to come? Besides, if he could come here, why would I bring you here? This was something that could be understood even with one's knees. Supreme martial artist Bu was very pleased. He even had a very clever idea in his mind. If there is suitable medicine here and it is sufficient, then after I bid for it later, he would immediately leave with Mo Qingwu. Far away from this troublesome place where she could meet Chu Yang at any time, so as to prevent his disciple from falling deeper and deeper. After that, he would immediately change his residence with Ning Tianya and find a secluded place to cultivate with his disciple for 180 years. By then, Chu Yang would probably be an old monkey and he would come out again. After 180 years, even the strongest yearning would have faded. Then, she would see an old man with a face full of wrinkles. It would be good enough if Xiao Wu didn't spit at him. Big brother Chu Yang? To hell with you. Bu Liuqing thought smugly. Mo Qingwu rolled her eyes. She thought, Master clearly doesn't want me to see elder brother Chu Yang. What a bad guy. When the auction is over, I'll sneak away. I ran to brother Chu Yang's place and didn't come out, humph. Ungrateful. Back then, I didn't even want to take you as my master. It was brother Chu Yang who did his best to make it happen. Mo Qingwu stuck out her tongue at Bu Liuqing's back and rolled her eyes. She sat at the side angrily and did not say anything. The curtains slowly opened, and a white-robed man was already standing on the stage. He had white hair, a ruddy complexion, and a tall and sturdy figure. His face was kind. Everyone was in an uproar. Immediately, he realized how extraordinary this auction was. This was because the person who had come out was actually the high priest of the Medicine Valley, whose status was only below the Valley Lord. Before this, he was recognized as the #1 miracle doctor in the heaven. He was also the #1 divine apothecary. Usually, no matter what happened, it was very rare for him to make an appearance. The fact that he was personally making an appearance meant that the scale of the auction had far surpassed everyone's expectations. Cough cough, cough cough. Everyone, I'm an old man. Say a few words. The great consecrator chuckled. He first coughed twice to clear his throat. Just this one sentence was enough for those who paid attention to hear the excitement in his voice. Come to think of it, there really were a lot of heavenly treasures. On the 14th floor, in a private room, Diwu Qingru frowned and said, let's bid at the start of the auction and only bid for those that are useful. The scale of the auction is the medicine below. Bid for as much as we can. As for the top-grade elixirs, don't bid for anything. The elder beside him was puzzled. We don't lack purple crystals now, why don't we bid for the good ones? Diwu Qingrou's eyes were heavy. He said, even the high priest of the Medicine Valley is so excited. This shows that this batch of elixirs is really extraordinary. It's already very good that we can bid for them. The elder beside him nodded, still somewhat disapproving. He thought to himself, not necessarily. Depending on the situation later, there will definitely be good ones and bad ones. At this time, the great elder on the stage had already started speaking. As everyone knows, the Medicine Valley attaches great importance to this auction. Moreover, there are many types of herbs and every one of them is very precious. I can say with absolute certainty that every single stalk of medicine this time is extraordinary. This old man has personally examined every single one of them and personally written an evaluation. The evaluation written by this old man is in the box that holds the herbs and has this old man's seal as proof. A commotion broke out below. Everyone knew the temper of the high priest of the Medicine Valley. He was smelly and stubborn. If one wanted him to treat a patient, it was fine as long as they liked him and he wouldn't ask for anything. If they didn't like him, even if you put a purple crystal mine in front of him, he wouldn't even bat an eyelid. Watching someone die without saving them was the old man's specialty. And if one wanted him to appraise herbs, the conditions were even more stringent. Because this old man had a rule, he wouldn't appraise anything that wasn't heavenly treasures. He wouldn't give an appraisal certificate for heavenly treasures that weren't of heavenly treasures grade and above. If one thought that their heavenly treasures could be appraised by him and rake in a huge sum of money with the appraisal certificate, then one had better pray. Because this old man would first charge you an exorbitant appraisal fee. If he felt that it didn't meet the standards of a heavenly treasure, then he would smash it into smithereens on the spot. Want to take it back intact? Dream on. Therefore, there was a rumor in the pugilistic world, as long as the high priest appraised it, it would be a heavenly treasure. And this was the minimum requirement. Now, the high priest actually said that every single stalk of this batch of herbs had his appraisal certificate in it. This news was simply shocking. Since it was a batch, then there must be a lot of them. Could it be that even the lowest grade of this batch of herbs was a heavenly treasure? Where did so many heavenly treasures come from in this world? Most of this batch of herbs came from the black blood forest. The high priest emphasized and said, the core of the black blood forest. This news. Even Bu Liuqing was shocked. Bu Liuqing had also passed by the core of the black blood forest before. However, he could faintly sense the existence of an extremely dangerous aura inside. After much hesitation, he still chose to take a detour. He didn't even tell Ning Qianyao about this. Now, he actually heard that someone had picked herbs from the core of the black blood forest. How could Bu Liuqing not be shocked? In order for this auction to not be too monotonous, we have used all the power of the Medicine Valley and the Medicine Banquet. We have also gathered a few more heavenly treasures to participate in the auction. The high priest of the Medicine Valley said loudly, the starting price for this auction is purple crystals. You can use heavenly treasures as well as rare materials to offset the price. This is the seller's request. Everyone, please bear this in mind. This was clearly stated on the invitation. Everyone came prepared. Therefore, they weren't very surprised. Now, everyone's curiosity had been successfully piqued by this old man. They couldn't wait to start the auction immediately. The high priest smiled. Everyone is very anxious. Therefore, I won't say much more. Now, I announce the start of the auction. Immediately, the old man leaped up and floated up. He returned to the auction house of the Medicine Valley. There were two people. One in white and the other in black. They flew out from the auction house and landed on the stage. One of them was holding a golden hammer. The other was holding a box covered by a red cloth. It was obvious. This auctioneer. He was also someone from the Medicine Valley. The way he held the hammer was extremely awkward. It was as if he was holding a big knife and was about to chop someone at any time. His face was also the trademark of the Medicine Valley. It was stiff and expressionless. The people from the various big families sighed. Damn it. If not for the fact that the herbs were too rare. Just the appearance of this auctioneer would be enough to chase away everyone present. Just based on this zombie-like face. He would also be able to spoil this auction. Everyone, please pay attention. Now, let's bring out the first auction item. The auctioneer had a straight face. He said stiffly. Everyone participating in the auction cursed in unison. Fuck. You call yourself an auctioneer? Damn it, did someone die in your family? Would it kill you to smile and sound more passionate and provocative? The red cloth was unveiled. Below was an amethyst box. The auctioneer said stiffly, I would like to remind everyone that as soon as you get the item, you should quickly change to an amethyst core box. The Medicine Valley has limited financial resources and can only use amethyst. Although you don't have to worry about the loss of medicinal efficacy for the time being, it will definitely be lost over time. Everyone must be prepared for this. Everyone below nodded half-heartedly. They didn't even bother to respond with an O. Faced with such a face and such an expression, they really had no interest in pandering to anything. The auctioneer was about to open the amethyst box when he suddenly looked up again. I would like to remind everyone again. Time is tight today and the task is important. So, when you call out the price, please be quick. Because when I call out 1, 2, 3, the speed of the hammer falling will also be very fast. Everyone was stunned. Damn it, there was such an amazing auctioneer. Everyone else was deliberately stalling for time and would only fall the hammer when there was really no one bidding. But this guy actually said, I call out 1, 2, 3 very fast. The man in black next to him had already held the amethyst box in one hand and was pushing it forward. The auctioneer reached out to open the lid and suddenly stopped. I would like to remind everyone again, what the fuck are you reminding us for? From the private room of the Li clan in the Earth House, a loud scolding could be heard. Would it kill you to be faster? The auctioneer was startled. He said coldly, if the Li clan is not satisfied, you can leave early. This guy, facing one of the big clans, the Li clan, actually didn't bother with words at all. His attitude was as tough as a piece of iron. Chu Yong was stunned. Looking at this zombie face from afar, he rubbed his chin and murmured, this guy is a little interesting. Wei Wuyan, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke up. This is the young valley master of the Medicine Valley. Chu Yang was surprised. No wonder he was so arrogant. So he was the young valley master of the entire Medicine Valley. It was just that he really didn't expect this young valley master of the Medicine Valley to look like this. And L. Second update modification. G. To be continued. Chapter 1057. On the other side, in the Li clan's private room. Li Xiangxi had already slapped the head of the person beside him and scolded, "If you don't know him, watch him and speak less. Damn it, this guy is the son of the Valley Master. Offending him is the same as offending the Medicine Valley. If he really gets angry, the Li clan can forget about getting any medicine from the Medicine Valley in the future. He's the little god of medicine." The other members of the Li clan were also stunned. It can't be. How old is the Valley Master of the Medicine Valley? How can he have such a young son? Li Xiangxi snorted and said, "Rumor has it that the little god of medicine had developed a kind of youth-fixing potion in order to preserve his mother's youth forever. However, he was worried about the potion's effectiveness and drank a bottle of it first. Thus, he became like this. This kind of potion was obviously a failure, so I never heard of it again." He raised his voice and said, "Young Valley Master, please continue. This subordinate of mine doesn't know what's good for him and I have already punished him. I hope the Medicine Valley will not take it to heart." The young Valley Master snorted and put this matter aside. He continued, "I'll remind everyone of one more thing, and that is, safety is guaranteed in this auction. No matter who it is, if there are any suspicious activities, the Medicine Valley will blacklist him and his family forever. We will not sell any medicine to him in this lifetime." He finished speaking rigidly and said, "The first auction item is a stalk of white-bearded ginseng." He took out the white-bearded ginseng from the purple crystal box with 2 fingers, shook it a little and put it back. This action didn't seem like an auction but more like a magic trick. Everyone was surprised and thought, what kind of treasure is the white-bearded ginseng? This thing is everywhere. How can it be brought to such a high-end auction? Then, the young Valley Master picked up a piece of paper from the purple crystal box and said, "This is the High Priest's appraisal report." As he said, he opened it. Holding it in front of his eyes, he started to read it. Chu Yang was speechless. This guy didn't even introduce it and just used a ready-made draft to read it. How lazy. This was the first time he had seen an auctioneer like this. He read, "This is the white-bearded ginseng, which grows in the black blood forest. White-bearded ginseng can be used as medicine after 50 years. It can nourish one's vitality and regulate one's body. However, this white-bearded ginseng was an extraordinary item that had been growing in the black blood forest for 3,000 years. The roots had already turned white. The ginseng's body was jet black like the starry night. The medicinal effect was abundant. It can be used as a 10,000-year-old blood ginseng. Its medicinal strength was 3 times stronger than that of the 10,000-year blood ginseng. Positioning, level heaven and earth treasure. If a martial saint cultivator consumes it, it can increase their cultivation by 300 years and increase their lifespan by 300 years. He raised his head and said indifferently, "White-bearded ginseng, starting price. Purple crystals, 5,000 pieces, please make your bids." Everyone was dumbfounded. A 3,000-year-old white-bearded ginseng in the black blood forest. Its medicinal strength surpassed the 10,000-year-old blood ginseng by 3 levels. It turned out to be such a good thing. The 10,000-year blood ginseng was already considered as a top-grade heavenly treasure, but in the head consecrator's eyes, this white-beard ginseng, which was 3 times stronger than the 10,000-year blood ginseng, was only classified as a grey. However, how was this possible? How could a white-bearded ginseng grow for 3,000 years? However, the High Priest's appraisal report was definitely not fake. In this world, in terms of understanding of medicinal herbs, no one could surpass the High Priest. Moreover, to issue an appraisal report in front of so many people, he could only be modest and definitely not exaggerating. Because if it was fake, it would mean that the reputation of the entire Medicine Valley would be ruined. The high priest would not joke about the Medicine Valley's tens of thousands of years of reputation. Then it would prove one thing: this white-bearded ginseng was definitely authentic. It definitely had such a function. The auctioneer on the stage had already raised the gavel and said rigidly, "No one speaks. I will count to 3. If no one makes a bid, this white-bearded ginseng will be declared as a no bid. 1, 2. Hold on." Someone shouted anxiously. Everyone broke out in cold sweat. "You said that you would call out the numbers very quickly, but no one really knew how many pieces you called out." Now they finally knew. "You motherfucker, you didn't even stop calling out the numbers." If it was an ordinary item, calling out like that would probably make it a no bid. If any auction house hired you as an auctioneer, it would definitely mean that the head of the auction house was kicked in the head by a donkey. Not only did you lose your family's fortune, it would really be like smoke rising from your ancestors' graves. "I'll offer 1,000 purple crystals." Someone shouted loudly. Everyone turned to look and saw a burly man with a curly beard standing up, holding up a sign and shouting. Diwu Qingru turned and said, "Bid, 8,000. The elder behind him was startled and immediately shouted, "Our Diwu clan bids 8,000 purple crystals." He suddenly increased the bid by 2,000. This showed Diwu Qingru's determination to win. The moment he heard the words Diwu clan, Chu Yang looked out from the corner of the room and happened to see Diwu Qingru's thin and wise face. Chu Yang's pupils shrank slightly and he smiled slightly. Sending an invitation to the Diwu clan was Chu Yang's request to the Medicine Valley. And now, Diwu Qingru was indeed sitting here. Chu Yang smiled lightly and thought to himself, the Diwu clan is indeed lacking in elixirs. The auctioneer on the stage raised the gavel and shouted, "Are there any more bids? Are there any more bids? Are there any more bids?" He shouted 3 times in a row and waited for no more than 2 blinks of an eye. Then, he shouted, 1, 2, 3, deal. Boom. The gavel fell. Everyone was sweating profusely. This auction was so straightforward. Others probably hadn't even weighed the gains and losses and you've already hammered the gavel. Next, Diwu Qingru continued to bid. 8,000 for the first type, 10,000 for the second, 18,000 for the third. He won 13 types of elixirs at high prices in a row. A total of 400,000 purple crystals were spent. Then, Diwu Qingru fell silent. The prices are getting higher and higher. It's not that we can't afford the lower prices, but we will offend people if we bid. Our Diwu clan can't afford to offend powerful enemies now. Therefore, our Diwu clan's gains for this auction will end here. Diwu Qingru said lightly. Why? What a pity. The supreme martial artist expert behind him still didn't quite understand. The elixirs were getting more and more high-end. Although they were still called grades, everyone could see that whether it was the value of the elixirs or other values, they had far exceeded the average grade. The unit price was already more than 25,000, and Diwu Qingru's momentum was at its peak now. Once he bid, no one could compete with him. The clan was in urgent need of these things. Why would Diwu Qingru give them up? The amount of purple crystals he brought this time was as much as 2 million. Diwu Qingru closed his eyes and said lightly, "This wave was actually released on purpose. And these are for the big clans. They belong to the kind that can be seen but are not worth the high price to put down their pride to fight for. Obviously, they are released for the small clans. So, I didn't hesitate to take them all with an overwhelming advantage. After that, the highlight will start to appear and it won't be something that we can take. And, these are just right for us to take. They can satisfy our needs for a long time without arousing suspicion." Diwu Qingru said lightly, "People should be content with what they have. Eat what you have, eat what you have. It's best if you don't stuff yourself to death. Being poor won't kill you. But being rich can kill you. That's the principle." Seeing that the Diwu clan no longer bid, Chu Yang's eyes glanced over a few more times. Seeing that Diwu Qingru indeed had no intention of bidding, Chu Yang sighed in his heart. He was a little disappointed but also secretly admired him. Shaking his head, he crossed out this item in his heart. In the air, he drew the word endure. Dong Wushang shook his head, a little disappointed. He gave Mo Lei a look. Mo Lei wrote down a few words in the account book, Diwu, Yin endure. Then, she drew an emphasis symbol. Chuyang no longer looked at Diwu Qingru. Instead, he frowned, as if thinking about something. This step was half a success and half a failure at the moment. The success was due to Diwu Qingrou's clan's lack of elixirs, but the failure was due to Diwu Qingrou's own perseverance. Chuyang immediately gave up and found another way. Indeed, in the following auctions, the elixirs became more and more high-end. 3 items were sold consecutively and they were all bought by another Wang clan at a high price. But Diwu Qingru could clearly feel that at the highest level of heaven, earth, and man, there were already eyes scanning the whole place. Waves of dense and uncomfortable aura, along with the owner's strong displeasure, swept here and there. Diwu Qingrou's eyes flashed. Every time a clan bid, as long as they shouted more than 2 times, he would immediately capture their aura and link it to the corresponding clan. Gradually, a precise file was formed in his mind. The Zhao clan had already offended the Li clan. The Li clan wanted it, but before they could bid, it was snatched by the Zhao clan. This Wu clan's bid this time seemed to have offended the Li clan. These seemed to be unrelated, but Diwu Qingru had connected this matter with the terrain, strength, and interests of each great clan. In an instant, he had made a list in his mind of people who could be used in the future according to the terrain and various circumstances. They could be used as scapegoats, and could be used as scapegoats. They could be used to frame others, and so on. Chuyang was frowning, calculating, and calculating. Diwu Qingru was also frowning, calculating, and planning. If someone paid attention to these 2 people at the same time, they would definitely realize that these 2 people were doing exactly the same thing. Even the analysis of the pros and cons in each other's minds were basically the same. Anyway, they were all treasures. Some clans were basically waiting with their mouths open. As soon as a bid was called, they would immediately shout. They had a kind of mentality, no matter what they bought, they wouldn't lose out. Coincidentally, they met such a dumb auctioneer. It would be stupid if they didn't shout quickly. On the 15th floor, a few big clans opened their mouths a few times, but before they could shout, they had already been bid away. Embarrassed to fight with these people, they could only watch helplessly as the elixirs brushed past them. Many people below were beaming with joy. Little did they know that the people above were already angry and murderous. A fatal disaster was actually planted so easily. The 3rd update is still being edited. I spent the whole night writing, so there are a lot of wrong sentences and typos. Asterisk cough asterisk asterisk cough asterisk asterisk cough asterisk asterisk cough asterisk asterisk cough star. Chapter 1058. Zi Xieching looked at Chuyang, a little puzzled. However, she realized that Chuyang was very confident and had a smile on his face. She sent a telepathic message to him. You did this on purpose, didn't you? You didn't just sell so many elixirs from the Black Blood Forest for purple crystals? Chuyang smiled and said lightly, purple crystals are also very important. But these things are even more important after straightening them out. Killing people would certainly create chaos in the upper 3 heavens. Shifting the blame could also destabilize a few clans. However, wasn't an auction also a form of entertainment? Who wouldn't want so many elixirs? With so many elixirs, the clan would be able to produce a super expert. By then, the clan would be able to take over a bigger territory and stabilize its position in the upper 3 heavens. This was definitely the most important thing that concerned Sun Wandai. In front of such absolute benefits, very few people could remain clear-headed. But it was precisely this kind of clear-headed, greedy and overestimating oneself that wanted to compete. But a competition could cause the clan to be exterminated. Big clans were all concerned about their reputation. Even if they were to compete, they couldn't lose their status. If a small clan were to compete with them, they would become a laughingstock in the eyes of other clans. If they didn't compete, they would feel aggrieved. After a long time, it would become murderous. Those who were killed were those who didn't know any better, and once these people took action, there would be deaths. After their deaths, there would be a power vacuum. If other clans wanted to take over, they would have to fight. Once there was a war, there would be friction. Even if they didn't kill, there would be a psychological problem. No matter when, they only needed to sow discord. As long as such situations happened more often, Chu Yang would be able to bring his brothers to any place and any aspect in the martial world. Making use of those who should be used, suppressing those who should be suppressed, instigating those who should be instigated, even instigating a war between the two clans at the borders of the two clans. Everything would be done as he pleased. This was Chu Yang's foreshadowing. It was also what Diwu Qingru was currently calculating. To Chu Yang and Diwu Qingru, these things were the real value of this auction. Purple crystals could improve one's cultivation, but knowing these things could save one's life. It could be developed. And these were all opportunities. Digging it out would be a long-term benefit. Zi Xieching smiled bitterly as she watched Chu Yang devising strategies and Mo Leiya calculating meticulously. Then, she listed out plans one by one, without any mess. How sinister. Zi Xieching let out a long sigh of relief. Her cultivation level was high, and she was also extremely intelligent. However, if she were to calculate this, she would not be able to do it. She probably wouldn't be able to figure it out even if she was exhausted to death. However, Chu Yang was very familiar with everything. He arranged everything in an orderly manner. He didn't say a single word. He just tossed out a few stalks of spirit herbs, and it was enough to make them fight one another. Even if they couldn't fight. Since your family has such a spiritual herb, it is bound to be targeted by others. He also had the capital to sow discord. It's not sinister enough. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh. I didn't achieve my most important goal. Instead, he took advantage of me. Mo Leiya smiled and said, to be able to obtain these is already a great surprise. Chu Yang smiled, yes. Dong Wushang asked dumbly, what? Chu Yang and Mo Leiya scolded together. Pig. Rui Butong cackled. Dong Wushang said angrily, what are you laughing at? Do you know? Rui Butong said frankly, I don't know, but I didn't ask. He smiled sneakily. I did ask on my behalf. Not only can I know the answer, I can also enjoy the pleasure of gloating. Dong Wushang's face darkened. Chu Yang laughed, and then sighed. His main goal was of course Diwu Qingru. The Diwu clan lacked spirit herbs. Chu Yang was infinitely sure of this. Otherwise, when they were in the lower three heavens, Diwu Qingru wouldn't have stored so many spirit herb. Therefore, it was not a problem to lure Diwu Qingru out. If Diwu Qingru was also blinded by greed in this auction, then, it would be equivalent to grasping his weakness. Chu Yang could calmly carry out the plan step by step. He could force Diwu Qingru into a corner so that his Diwu clan could only jump out openly to wear him down. Not like now. Ambushing in the dark. And Chu Yang himself was always worried about being ambushed. People like Diwu Qingru would rather die than fight head-on with others if they didn't force him to a certain extent. Chu Yang now wanted to make use of Diwu Qingru all the time, but wasn't Diwu Qingru also looking for opportunities to make use of Chu Yang? But the biggest problem now was that although Chu Yang was not in danger, he was standing in the open, while Diwu Qingru was still standing in the dark. And there was no weakness for others to grasp. Chu Yang wanted to make use of Diwu Qingru to overthrow, and Diwu Qingru wanted to make use of Chu Yang to rise. However, although both of them had this intention, they could only cooperate tacitly. It was absolutely impossible for them to cooperate face to face. Because of their cooperation, they had schemed against each other. If one side succeeded, the other side would definitely suffer a crushing defeat. Therefore, after Diwu Qingru took advantage of the situation, he gave up a bigger profit in time. This made Chu Yang feel both regretful and excited. To be honest, when he was arranging such a plan, Chu Yang was even praying that Diwu Qingru wouldn't fall for it. Because if that was the case, it would inevitably lose the joy of meeting a worthy opponent in the battle between the two. Chu Yang would be disappointed. Fortunately, Diwu Qingru did not disappoint him. When it came to the 30th item, the starting price was 20,000 purple crystals, and there were still people bidding below. But someone stood out from the Chen clan box. He coughed and said slowly, the Chen clan offers 30,000 purple crystals for this herb. Instantly, everyone was speechless. In the end, this spirit herb was sold for 30,000 purple crystals and landed in the Chen clan's pocket. Chu Yang, who was frowning and thinking, was so angry that he almost burst. This was the golden jade black blood lingji with powerful medicinal effects. In Chu Yang's plan, it could be auctioned for at least 70,000 to 80,000 purple crystals, but it was taken away by the Chen clan for 30,000. The most infuriating thing was that such situations happened one after another. After the Chen clan took the lead, the Li clan, Yi clan, and Xiao clan all took action. In an instant, 7 spirit herbs were divided among them. And it was the same tone. Someone stood out, looked around with dignity, then coughed and said slowly, "We want this medicine." Who dared to compete with them? Chu Yang was so angry that his nose was crooked. Damn it, this loss was too great. The people from the Medicine Valley were also in a mess. With the big clans doing this, the auction couldn't go on. However, the big clans clearly had a tacit understanding. As long as one of them stood out, the other clans wouldn't compete. Similarly, when the other clans wanted other herbs, this clan wouldn't compete either. The following spirit herbs were getting more and more high-end. Were they just going to mess things up like this? The people from the big clans were also depressed. Who asked you to bring out such good stuff? If you want good stuff and want to save money at the same time, how can you not think of a way? In the sky room number 2, Bu Liuqing was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He said, "The Medicine Valley is really in deep trouble this time. The big clans are going to make a loss." Mo Qingwu tilted her head and said, "This big clan is really shameless. But if my big brother Chu Yang was here, there would definitely be a way." Bu Liuqing pursed his lips and rolled his eyes, not saying anything. He thought to himself, "No matter what I say, this little girl always says her big brother Chu Yang without any exception. I'd better keep my mouth shut." The next spirit herb was about to be snatched away in the same way. Suddenly, an inexplicable and terrifying pressure filled the entire auction hall like a tsunami. The Dharma Supreme laughed bitterly. He thought to himself, "That person can't stand it anymore and can't stand it anymore." He just didn't know how she was going to deal with this matter. Bu Liuqing was shocked. His eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. He said in a daze, "How can there be such a powerful person in this world?" Yi Di and the rest were also stunned. They didn't know what this powerful person was up to. She shouldn't be able to see the auction of spirit herbs of this level. Zi Xieching suddenly released her aura when no one expected it. That aura surged violently in the entire auction hall, causing everyone to be unable to breathe. Everyone kept quiet out of fear. After a long while, a faint voice said, "So this is how an auction is. It really surprises me." No one dared to speak. They all listened in a daze. "If you have purple crystals, buy it. If you don't, scram." Zi Xieching's voice was filled with anger and dominance. She said indifferently, "These herbs from the Black Blood Forest were brought out by me. Understand?" Bam! The second grandmasters of the big clans all sat down at the same time. They sat down on their chairs and didn't regain their senses for a long time. This was really bad. They had offended someone, and it was someone they definitely couldn't afford to offend at the moment. Zi Xieching said indifferently, "We wanted to take advantage of you, but why are all of you taking advantage of me?" The entire hall was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. "You must know how to bid for the future herbs," Zi Xieching said indifferently. "As for this stalk, whoever took it away in such a way will have to send me double the amount they lost." Then, she said heavily, immediately, murderous intent surged out like a tide. Zi Xieching didn't say anything else. But the big clans were like wax in a candle. They were really disgraced now. Just a while ago, everyone was still happily taking advantage of her. Now, they had to obediently send the herbs to her, and double the amount at that. But this double had to have a price. "We thought it was worth 50,000 yuan, but you thought it was worth 100,000 yuan. In this case, we still have to eat shit when we send it over." For a moment, everyone regretted. Damn it, why did they take advantage of her when they had nothing better to do? They had no choice. After some calculations, They all pinched their noses and took out purple crystals that were worth 4 times the original amount and sent someone to send it over. They were so depressed that they wanted to die. Something that was originally worth 50,000 yuan now had to be bought with 200,000 yuan, and they even had to lower their heads and be careful. Monthly votes 5,100 plus updates. I'm editing the 4th update. I'll upload it soon. To be continued. Chapter 1059. The people from the big clans all looked sullen. If this is called taking advantage, then everyone should take advantage of me. This is simply asking for trouble. Zi Xieching didn't stand on ceremony at all. She instructed Chu Yang to keep all the purple crystals that were given to her. Dong Wushang, Wn Renjie and the rest were all dumbfounded. I'm going to faint. This big sister Zi is actually such a bold and powerful person. She alone, with just one sentence, could suppress the heavens. The auction that followed became lively. If the big clans wanted to get a stalk of medicine, they had to bid. And the bidding was very crazy. There was absolutely no way that it would go unsold. If it went unsold, this powerful person would say, "Why did your clan let this thing go unsold? I think it's very valuable. Do you think it's not?" And then each clan would have to pay double the price. That would be going for wool and coming home shorn. Under such circumstances, everyone from the big clans complained incessantly. How many purple crystals could they afford to spend like this? They couldn't help but look at the 4 private rooms that they couldn't afford to offend. They prayed in their hearts, "Hurry up and bid, bid. We can't hold on much longer." Finally, when it was time for the black-blooded red fruit, Bu Liuqing bid 100,000 purple crystals. This price was indeed not high. The starting price for the black-blooded red fruit was already 100,000. This guy didn't even add a single word. The big clans heaved a sigh of relief. My goodness, in this short period of time, each clan had bid for more than 30 stalks of medicine. The purple crystals that they had brought with them were almost used up. Bu Liuqing bid. Just nice, let this guy hold on for a while. Yes, it's not that we don't want to support him, but we can't afford to offend this guy. Bu Liuqing opened his mouth. There was complete silence. Everyone was gloating. If Bu Liuqing and this powerful person got into a conflict, it would definitely be a good show. But the strange thing was that the powerful woman didn't make a sound. So, Bu Liuqing bid for a black-blooded red fruit with a starting price of 100,000 purple crystals. Next, a dazzling sound vine. Bu Liuqing bid again, 100,000 purple crystals. Still, no one competed. The zombie-faced auctioneer was very eloquent. The hammer fell with a thud. It went to Bu Liuqing again. Again, the starting price. Everyone was puzzled by these words. What's wrong? Could it be that the woman was also wary of Bu Liuqing? Chu Yang was grinning from ear to ear in the private room. He still had some of these items in stock. Even if Bu Liuqing didn't buy them, he would still find a way to send them to Qingwu. Now that Bu Liuqing was willing to spend money, it couldn't be better. Who knew how many good things this old man had plundered all these years? It was only right that he spit out a little. Seeing the purple crystals flowing into his pocket like a river, Chu Yang heaved a huge sigh of relief. After this auction, even if Calamity Sword had to devour a portion of the purple crystals, the brothers would need to cultivate for at least 20 years. There was no need to worry at all. Everything was settled in one go. The purple crystal was the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Bu Liuqing bid for 3 items in a row. It seemed like he had run out of money, so he didn't make another bid. Immediately after, the Feng and Yu couple won 10 spirit herbs in one go. However, compared to Bu Liuqing, the Moonbreeze couple's offer was much more reasonable. Basically, he bought it at market price. Compared to someone as shameless as Bu Liuqing, he seemed to have more class. Moreover, Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro were very excited. This mysterious senior had actually appeared here. Moreover, there were so many medicines. They were all hers. After the auction ended, he must pay her a visit. Then, the Dharma Supreme also bid for 20. The Dharma Supreme's price was more average. He didn't offend Zi Sheqing and didn't spend too much money. He had a good grasp of the situation. In the following auction of the Black Blood Divine Medicine, the various clans no longer used purple crystals. Instead, they used precious herbs, resources, and minerals to exchange for them. Batch after batch was exchanged. Chu Yang felt an itch in his heart. He couldn't wait to dig out another 700 to 800 herbs from his calamity space to auction. It felt so good to make a fortune like this. It was equivalent to starting from a nameless beggar. Suddenly, he became the richest man in the world. That kind of feeling. Purple crystals. Come, hi. Precious minerals. Come, hi. Rare medicines. Come on. Even the sword spirit didn't go into seclusion. He looked greedily at the precious materials that were being auctioned, exchanged, and discounted before entering the back hall. That look in his eyes was as if he couldn't wait to swallow those things up. Great nourishment. The elders and supreme martial artists of the various clans were all pale with fright. Although the spirit herbs were very valuable and had great effects. But they weren't that valuable. The various elders could clearly feel that this wasn't an auction but a slaughterhouse. They were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. In front of them, a big shiny knife was being sharpened and ready to slaughter them at will. Wherever they saw fat, the knife would cut them. Moreover, this kind of slaughter was done by them voluntarily, allowing others to pick and choose. They were being slaughtered and still afraid that others would be unhappy. It went without saying how aggrieved this feeling was. In all these herbs, other than the ones left by the Medicine Valley, those that the 4 big clans couldn't afford to offend and those low-grade goods that some small clans bought at the beginning, the rest were all divided up by the 8 big clan. And, basically, the price was double. Towards the end, when it came to the precious minerals and all kinds of rare spiritual materials, there were even less of them. It was as if the woman in the 3rd room was sick. Whenever she encountered a price that she didn't like or wasn't satisfied with, she would cough. It was as if she had tuberculosis. But once she coughed, the price that was about to be finalized would be doubled again. This kind of wealth was simply too awesome. Finally, the zombie-faced man held out a purple crystal box and said, "Next, the auction items are the herbs specially selected by the Medicine Valley for this medicine banquet. Everyone, please pay attention. The first item is a poisonous herb called blood orchid." As he spoke, he recited the characteristics of the blood orchid and finally announced the starting price, 30,000 purple crystal. Before he finished, Chu Yang, who was originally sitting in the room with his legs crossed, suddenly coughed pretentiously and said lightly, "I offer 30,000, and 1 purple crystal." Once this sentence came out, everyone was instantly speechless. Then, a stifling feeling rose up. Either you don't add, or you add a little more. The starting price was 30,000 and you only added 1 purple crystal. What was this called? Immediately, someone wanted to make a ruckus. But after waiting for a while, the people below were surprised to find that after this guy made the bid, the private rooms of the big clans were silent. There was no fighting, no snatching, no scolding, and no reprimanding. It was as if this matter was extremely normal. It was too strange. What was going on? Could it be that this young man was more powerful than the big clans? They had never heard of such an awesome person in the upper 3 heavens. Although they couldn't figure it out, if the big clans didn't dare to say anything, the others naturally didn't dare to object. In the second room, Mo Qingwu suddenly stood up. "This is Brother Chu Yang's voice." She was about to rush out. Bu Liuqing secretly complained in his heart. This little girl was really everywhere. How did she manage to get here? He grabbed Mo Qingwu and said, "Not necessarily. There are too many people with similar voices in the world. Little Wu, confirm it first. There are so many people here. Don't make a fool of yourself." Mo Qingwu said firmly, "I won't hear wrongly. Brother Chu Yang's voice, I will never hear wrongly." Bu Liuqing felt powerless. Mo Qingwu rushed out of the private room and stood outside, patrolling around. Her gaze was anxious. Her expression was urgent. A red shadow was pacing back and forth on the railing, watching anxiously, waiting for Chu Yang to speak again. Unknowingly, tears had already filled her eyes. She only felt that her heart was beating extremely violently, as if it could jump out of her throat at any time, a wave of sad longing accumulating in her heart, surging, tumbling, waiting to pour out. Many people below were watching. They didn't know what this little girl in red, who looked like a human, was looking for, and thinking about. The auctioneer said loudly, 30,000 for another piece of purple crystal. Is there a higher bid? Is there a higher bid? Is there a higher bid? 1, 2, 3, sold. Bang! The gavel fell. The people from the big clans all felt a little uncomfortable. In their eyes, Chu Yang did this. It was definitely that powerful being who deliberately ordered him to do this to disgust them. But they didn't dare to make a sound. Chu Yang got the blood orchid at the base price. But his heart suddenly became a little agitated and restless. For a moment, he was actually a little anxious, as if someone was calling out to him. Chu Yang frowned and suddenly became upset. He couldn't control the kind of emotions that wanted to vent. He murmured, "What's going on? Why is my heart so messed up? Is little Wu here? Could it be little Wu here?" The next item to be auctioned is the most poisonous in the world, the blood lotus. The base price is 35,000 purple crystals. As soon as the auctioneer said this, Chu Yang stood up. He looked very agitated. Zi Xieching also looked very excited. Chu Le-er's eyes lit up and her little face turned red. The last elixir that Chu Le-er needed for her illness actually appeared at this auction without any warning. Chu Yang never expected this. He bid for this blood orchid just in case. If he couldn't get the blood lotus, he would replace it with the blood orchid. Although it was a little lacking, it could still be used. It was just that it couldn't achieve the best results. It had been almost a year since he brought Chu Le-er out. Chu Le-er's illness didn't have much time left. So Chu Yang had to prepare a spare tire in advance. At this moment, when the blood lotus appeared, Chu Yang, who was already a little upset, couldn't hold it in anymore. He stood up and strode out, saying loudly, "I bid 40,000 purple crystals for the blood lotus." Mo Qingwu, who was searching hard, let out a moan. She looked at the tall and straight figure that appeared in the distance in disbelief. Her heart instantly felt sour and sweet and tears welled up in her eyes. She desperately wiped the tears that were gushing out of her eyes and murmured, "Brother Chu Yang." Her voice was so soft and muffled that even she herself couldn't hear it clearly. But this voice made the little girl feel that she wasn't dreaming. Mo Qingwu stood up abruptly and used all her strength to shout loudly, "Brother Chu Yang." Tears flowed freely from her eyes and face, but this shout was filled with joy. It was filled with the surprise of a reunion after a long separation and a deep longing. Fourth update. 5,300 more. Rest for a while, eat, then continue writing. I wrote 4 updates in one night. Chapter 1060. Chu Yang frowned, thinking about the vexation and longing in his heart. Suddenly, Mo Qingwu's figure surged into his mind. After calling out 40,000 purple crystals, he actually became a little dazed. It was as if a red figure was singing and dancing in front of him, floating up and down. For a moment, a strong sense of bitterness and longing welled up in his heart. In a daze, he suddenly heard someone call out, "Brother Chu Yang." Chu Yang raised his head abruptly and saw a petite figure in red drawing a beautiful neon light in the air, flying towards him. Behind her, there were red after-images that seemed to be dancing in the air. Chu Yang was stunned. In that instant, he actually couldn't tell if this was reality or a dream. He couldn't help but murmur, "Xiaowu? Qingwu?" The next moment, a petite figure suddenly crashed into his arms. Chu Yang felt softness in his arms and smelled a fragrance. Finally, he hugged her and said in surprise, "Xiaowu? It's really you." Mo Qingwu's face was already covered in tears. Choking with sobs, she buried her head in his arms and nodded vigorously, knocking into Chu Yang's chest. The longing and suppression that had been suppressed for a long time was completely released at this moment when she saw Chu Yang, her hands wrapped tightly around Chu Yang's body. Mo Qingwu felt that she was so happy at this moment. She greedily breathed in Chu Yang's scent, crying and laughing. At this moment, she didn't care about other people's gazes at all. After a long time, when this emotion was released, the little girl slid down from Chu Yang's arms. She pouted a little embarrassedly and rubbed her eyes. Then, her face turned red. She twisted her waist shyly and laughed, stomping her feet. She wanted to say something, but at the moment when the words were about to leave her mouth, she actually forgot them. So she stomped her feet in annoyance, bit her lips and blinked her eyes. Suddenly, she came to her senses and turned around, covering her face with her hands. Chu Yang's heart finally fell to the ground. He chuckled and held the little girl's shoulders. He said, "So it's really Xiaowu, ha ha ha. Come, let brother Chu Yang see, have you grown up now?" Mo Qingwu turned her body around, but still covered her face, not letting him see. He wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. She also felt a little embarrassed, as well as the hazy emotions of a young girl. At this moment, after the initial excitement, Mo Qingwu found that she had become even more nervous. His heart was beating even faster. Chu Yang laughed heartily. He felt extremely comfortable, joyful, and happy. It had only been a year since they last met, but the little lass had really changed a lot. She had grown taller. Moreover, the figure of a young girl was also beginning to be revealed. Originally, when Mo Qingwu pounced on him like this on the third day, Chu Yang felt a little uncomfortable. But now, he only felt a kind of soft happiness. The little girl was still a little skinny, but her shoulders were thin, her waist was slender, and her buttocks were full. Her figure was already beginning to show. Her chest was like a small lotus flower, and it was bulging shyly like a flower bud. Her hair was like clouds, and she was tall and slender. Chu Yang grinned and chuckled. He gently removed Mo Qingwu's hand from her face and said, "Let me see, let me see." Mo Qingwu stubbornly refused to let go and said, "I'll let you see if you're not allowed to laugh." Chu Yang solemnly promised, "I won't laugh." Mo Qingwu quietly moved away a little and met Chu Yang, who was already beaming with joy. She couldn't help but be annoyed. She pouted and said, "Still say you're not laughing." She actually covered her face again. Chu Yang laughed heartily. Then, he pulled Mo Qingwu's hand and led her into his room. After Chu Yang called out the price, the whole place was silent. Naturally, the lotus fell into Chu Yang's hands. Now, the medicine for his sister Chu Le-er's treatment was all ready. Mo Qingwu just happened to be back today, and Chu Yang temporarily didn't have any suspicions about the Tribulation Swordmaster. Bu Liuqing had already rushed over anxiously. Hey, young Chu, don't kidnap my disciple." Chu Yang turned back and beamed. "Senior Bu, you're here too. Haha, please come in and have a seat." Bu Liuqing couldn't wait to guard against him. Why would he come in and have a seat? He went to pull Mo Qingwu and said, "It's too dangerous to be with you. My disciple still has to cultivate. She's in the golden stage of cultivation. How can we waste time?" Mo Qingwu finally saw Chu Yang. Her heart still hadn't recovered from the bottleneck. She only felt that her mind was still in a trance. It felt like a dream. She was extremely excited and happy. How could she be willing to go back with Bu Liuqing at such a time? She shrank back and pouted unhappily. "Master, I've already seen brother Chu Yang. How can I still cultivate? I'll accompany brother Chu Yang and have a chat." Bu Liuqing glared at her and said, "How can a chat take so long? Little Wu, you don't understand. You're a girl. You have to be careful. There are many people in this world who have the heart of a beast. You can't tell from the surface." Mo Qingwu pouted and said, "My brother Chu Yang isn't such a person. Master, you've been doing everything possible to stop me from finding brother Chu Yang. Is it because you're afraid that he has the heart of a beast? Master, you're so narrow-minded." Bu Liuqing sighed and looked at Chu Yang with murderous eyes. Chu Yang was a little confused. The last time he saw Bu Liuqing in the Three Heavens, he didn't seem to be so rude. Why does it seem like he's full of wariness towards me this time? He's like an old hen trying to stop her chicks from getting close to a fox. Shamu suddenly understood why Bu Liuqing would think this way. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that the Dharma Supreme's words that night had a huge impact on Bu Liuqing. This guy believed that all Tribulation's swordmasters were heartless people and was afraid that his disciple would be taken advantage of. Chu Yang smiled and said, "Elder Bu, what are you talking about? We've met again after such a long time. Shouldn't we have a good gathering? Besides, there are many acquaintances inside." What he meant was, "I'm not alone with your disciple. We're always right under your nose. What are you afraid of?" Bu Liuqing frowned and said, "Even if there are many acquaintances." At this moment, a terrifying aura was suddenly emitted from the private room. A faint voice said, "You're the #1 expert of the heavens, supreme martial artist Bu, right?" Bu Liuqing's expression turned serious and he said, "I don't deserve to be the #1 expert of the heavens. May I know who you are?" Zi Xieching said indifferently, "Indeed, I don't deserve to be the #1 expert. However, I can still come in for a chat." Bu Liuqing's anger rose and he said indifferently, "If that's the case, I'd like to learn from you." As he said, he strode in. Chu Yang smiled. Zi Xieching was indeed the best at dealing with people like Bu Liuqing, #1 expert of the heavens. This caused his temper to flare up. However, Chu Yang also knew. The same method also depended on who was using it. If he said it himself, Bu Liuqing would probably not even bother with him and would just laugh it off. However, Zi Xieching was qualified to comment on this #1 expert of the heavens. Therefore, the words that came out of her mouth carried a lot of weight. Mo Qingwu didn't even consider this point. She also didn't consider that her teacher was already secretly competing with Zi Xieching inside. Her mind was filled with Chu Yang now. She leaned on Chu Yang and held his arm in her arms. The little girl felt extremely happy. It was as if she had someone to rely on for her entire life. The two of them spoke softly. Mo Qingwu raised her head from time to look at Chu Yang. There were still traces of tears at the corner of her eyes. However, the corners of her mouth were already blooming with a happy and gentle smile. She walked slowly into the private room. This situation made Chu Yang's heart suddenly ache. Especially the gentleness at the corner of Mo Qingwu's mouth. It made him combine the Mo Qingwu in front of him with the Mo Qingwu in his previous life. This was a gentleness that almost made him lose himself. The Qingwu in his previous life was just so gentle. She was so docile and obedient. No matter what, she would always put him first, including her own life. She had no regrets. As long as she could be with him, no matter how short the time was, she would wholeheartedly enjoy it. The time they spent together, even if it was just a blink of an eye. Cherish. The husband is the rock, the concubine is the vine. Everything is in the husband's body. Qingwu. Chu Yang moaned softly in pain. Unknowingly, he held Mo Qingwu's little hand tightly, as if he was afraid that she would turn into a puff of smoke and disappear like in his previous life. "Brother Chu Yang?" Mo Qingwu raised her head and looked at Chu Yang with her bright eyes. There was gentleness, trust, worry, and a kind of doting in her gaze. "I won't let you cry again." Chu Yang forced a smile and squeezed her little hand. He said as if he was making an oath, "Qingwu, you must be happy. I will let you be so happy for all your lives." Mo Qingwu looked at him in a daze. Suddenly, her eyes turned red and she sobbed, "But, Brother Chu Yang, when you say this, I feel so happy that I want to cry." The two had already walked to the door. It was just a few steps, but the two actually walked for half a cup of tea's time before they reached the door. Chu Yang was about to lift the curtain when Mo Qingwu pressed his hand down. Looking into Chu Yang's eyes, Mo Qingwu said softly, "Brother Chu Yang, you used to call me Little Wu, but today, when you call my name, you call me Qingwu." Chu Yang was startled. He said, "What's the difference? Little Wu has grown up, of course I should call you Qingwu. If you keep calling me Little Wu, it feels like Little Wu hasn't grown up yet." Mo Qingwu tilted her head and thought for a while. She nodded in agreement and said, "That's true." Chu Yang couldn't help but smile when he saw how childish she was and how she still pretended to be mature. Mo Qingwu tilted her head and murmured, "My name is Mo Qingwu, but since I was young, very few people called me Qingwu. They all called me Little Wu. But today, Brother Chu Yang, you called me Qingwu. Why do I feel that it's so familiar? This feeling is very strange." Chu Yang's heart shook. Familiar. Strange. I started writing this chapter at 4 this afternoon. Halfway through, I unintentionally clicked on a song called Love You Now and Forever. When I heard the line not being by your side for so many years, it's been hard on you, my sweetheart, I suddenly fell into a daze and listened to it over and over again for dozens of times. There will be more updates tonight. This is 5,500 Canadian dollars. At present, I still owe 3 chapters. Begging for monthly votes. To be continued. Chapter 1061. Mo Qingwu tilted her head and said mischievously, "It's very familiar, as if you've been calling me that for many years." Ha ha. Mo Qingwu was smiling, but Chu Yang's heart became heavy. He wondered if he was being too sensitive. Thinking too much. A soft sound came from the private room. Chu Yang and Mo Qingwu walked in and saw Dong Wushang and the rest standing at one side. Zi Xueqing was sitting in the middle and Bu Liuqing was standing like a sword opposite her. The two of them seemed to have exchanged blows secretly. Zi Xueqing was calm and collected, while Bu Liuqing revealed some sword intent. "You're indeed an expert." Bu Liuqing sighed. Zi Xueqing smiled lightly and said, "Number 1 in the heavens. You're indeed worthy of your reputation. Brother Bu may not be the true number 1, but he can definitely be ranked in the top 3. It's not an exaggeration." Bu Liuqing smiled coldly and said, "Top 3. Top 3? So, you mean you're number 1? Zi Xueqing shook her head lightly and said, "Brother Bu, you shouldn't compare yourself with me. Because..." She used her telepathy and sent a sentence over. "Because I'm not from this world." Bu Liuqing was shocked, and then a gentle smile appeared on his face. He said, "I see." After Bu Liuqing came in and fought with Zi Xueqing secretly, he was at a disadvantage. He couldn't help but feel a huge blow to his heart. He had always boasted that he was at the peak of the heavens, especially when the Dharma Supreme, who was recognized as number 1 in the world, was at a disadvantage in his hands. Bu Liuqing was full of confidence. Who would have thought that once he came in, he was at a complete disadvantage and almost had no power to fight back? The disappointment in his heart at this moment was really indescribable. But now that he heard Zi Xueqing say that he wasn't from this world, his mentality was immediately adjusted. He was someone who had surpassed this world. How could he be a match for him? "Brother Bu, are you worried about the Tribulation Sword Master?" Zi Xueqing continued to transmit her telepathy. Bu Liuqing was shocked. Chu Yang is definitely not that kind of person. Zi Xueqing transmitted her telepathy and said, "I think you should believe my words." Bu Liuqing's expression changed. He forced a smile and said, "I felt that your excellency was by his side helping him. So, I was certain that he wasn't a bad person. According to what I know, with your cultivation level, you can already pry into the heart, right?" Zi Xueqing nodded slowly. "Therefore, from the moment I came to this room, I've already set my heart at ease." Bu Liuqing smiled and said, "Therefore, I've already set my heart at ease. It's just a simple battle, nothing else." Bu Liuqing nodded. "Senior, please enlighten me. This heavens beyond." Bu Liuqing continued to ask. "This. I will talk to you when you come to pick up your disciple." Zi Xueqing's eyes flashed. He sized him up and said, "Actually, you're only half a step away from becoming a grandmaster. But, you'll have to deal with your worries first. Otherwise, after entering the sky beyond heaven, over the years, it became an inner demon. The heart devil of outer heaven cannot be resisted." Bu Liuqing's heart shook as he replied, "Yes." He thought to himself, "So she actually knew my wish." Without saying anything else, he nodded his head in acknowledgement. He took 2 steps back. In the room, he could faintly feel the terrifying aura of 10,000 swords. Just like that, it suddenly disappeared. Bu Liuqing turned his head and said, "Xiaowu, stay here for a few days first. When I'm done with my business, I'll come and pick you up. How about that?" Mo Qingwu cheered. "Teacher is a great person." Bu Liuqing smiled dotingly and nodded at Chu Yang. His gaze was a little complicated as he shouted, "Little one, if you dare to bully my disciple, I'll castrate you alive. Chu Yang was about to reply when he saw that Bu Liu Qing had already turned into a ray of light and disappeared from the room. This person is not bad, Zi Sheqing said to Chu Yang. Chu Yang pondered and said, regarding this, I have a question. I'll discuss it with you later. He shook his head and said, I'm not mature yet. Zi Sheqing knew that since Chu Yang said so, it must be a very serious question. She nodded and promised, the things you're thinking about are always very complicated. I can't guarantee that I'll solve them for you, but I'll try my best to clear your doubts. Chu Yang said, okay. At this moment, Dong Wushang's eyes lit up and he exclaimed, this Xiaowu? Isn't this Xiaowu? Rui Butong also recognized her. The two of them were overjoyed at once and were about to pounce on her. Mo Qingwu took a step back and said, Brother Wushang, Brother Butong, you can't hug me. Dong Wushang said jokingly, why, only your brother Chu Yang can hug you and we can't. Why? Mo Qingwu snorted and said, men and women shouldn't touch each other. Dong Wushang and Rui Butong laughed so hard that they swayed back and forth. At this moment, Chu Le walked out from Zi Sheqing's side and took Chu Yang's hand. She asked with a hint of hostility, Big brother, who is this? Mo Qingwu immediately felt a sense of hostility. She had innate spirit meridians and was especially sensitive to this kind of aura. She couldn't help but hug Chu Yang's other arm and asked, Brother Chu Yang, who is she? There was actually a hint of jealousy and hostility in her voice. The two little girls, one hugging the left arm and the other hugging the right arm, looked at each other with hostility across Chu Yang. Chu Le felt that her status was being attacked. Mo Qingwu felt that her status as the first wife was being threatened. The jealousy revealed by the two little girls at this moment was actually very strong. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. He didn't expect the two little girls to start fighting the moment they met. He hurriedly explained, okay, stop fooling around, let me introduce you. Before he finished, Chu Le already interrupted, I call him Big Brother, who do you think I am to him? Mo Qingwu pouted and said, I also call him Brother Chu Yang, who do you think I am? The two little girls didn't give way to each other. They glared at each other as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Chu Yang looked at Zi Sheqing for help, but Zi Sheqing tilted her head to one side and looked at Dong Wushang. The three of them looked as if they were watching a show. When they saw Chu Yang looking over, the three of them turned their heads toward the ceiling at the same time. Wn Renjie and the others held back their laughter and watched the show. Wei Wuyan sat at one side lifelessly. He didn't speak or move. Nangong Shifeng and his brothers laughed dryly and actually said, I need to pee. The brothers all needed to pee and left quickly. Chu Yang was sweating profusely. What kind of people are they? Can't they see that I'm in pain now? Just as he was about to explain Chu Le-er's identity, Chu Le-er pinched his waist. He didn't dare to use his energy for fear of hurting her hand, so he grimaced in pain. Why are you pinching my brother Chu Yang? Mo Qingwu was unhappy. Try pinching yourself. Don't you know pain? Chu Le said, I like to pinch him, so what? Is your heart aching? What right do you have to feel heartache? Mo Qingwu was dumbfounded. Chu Le narrowed her eyes and said, You like him? You're so young and you actually like someone? Mo Qingwu's face instantly turned red. Although her temper was soft with a hint of toughness, her nature was pure and honest, and even a little simple and adorable. She was thin-skinned to begin with, so when she heard Chu Le-er's words, she couldn't take it anymore. Chu Le-er, on the other hand, was very scheming. This girl had been bedridden all these years, and her body had not grown much. Although she hadn't grown much, she was very cunning. Once she saw Mo Qingwu's expression, she immediately guessed it. When she saw Chu Yang's doting expression, she immediately knew that things were not good. Chu Le naturally had a sister-in-law candidate in mind. Of course, it was the peerless beauty Zi Sheqing. At this moment, seeing a girl about her age actually coveting the position of sister-in-law, she felt very uncomfortable. She rolled her eyes and immediately felt a little uncomfortable. She said, But he already has me. Even if you marry him, you can only be a concubine. Mo Qingwu let out an ah and said in disbelief, You? How is this possible? Chula was furious. She said, why is it impossible? Mo Qingwu looked at Chula who was half a head shorter than her, and said with a face full of suspicion, Brother Chu Yang probably won't like someone like you. Chula exploded. She made threatening gestures and said, what's wrong with me being like this? Mo Qingwu shook her head and said earnestly, little girl, you're still young. Don't make such a joke. Even if Brother Chu Yang wants to marry, he can only marry a beautiful girl like me. Someone like you, who's covered with bean sprouts that haven't even grown yet, would hurt my hand when I touch you. Brother Chu Yang won't like you. If you're really persistent, come back a few years later when you've grown up. When the time comes, beg me and I can make the decision to take you in as a concubine for Brother Chu Yang. When she said this, Chu Yang was really dumbfounded. Not only him, even Dong Wushang, Zi Sheqing, and the others also looked at Mo Qingwu in disbelief. They didn't expect this little girl to actually say such things. As for feeling like a bean sprout, that was a joke that Chu Yang had made with Mo Qingwu back then. They didn't expect this girl to remember it until now. Dong Wushang and the others naturally knew that Mo Qingwu had always been ambitious towards Chu Yang. Back then, on the way to the far north wastelands, Mo Qingwu had once said, can I be your sister-in-law? At that time, everyone only thought that the little girl was joking. But now, the little girl was 13. She was still infatuated with him. The words above were actually extremely powerful, even if they were to be used as a counterattack. It made Chula teary-eyed and speechless. Mo Qingwu's heart softened a little. She comforted her. When you grow up, you'll still have a chance. Chula said angrily, who needs your comfort? Mo Qingwu hugged Chu Yang's arm proudly and said, so, you still have to learn from me in everything. Chula snorted. Chu Yang hurriedly explained with a wry smile, Qingwu, this is Chula my second uncle's daughter, my younger sister. Mo Qingwu cried out in surprise, your younger sister? She was instantly filled with regret. Damn, I was wondering why she was so fierce. So it's little aunt. If little aunt objects, things will be really bad. Mo Qingwu was still young, but she was deeply in love with Chu Yang. Moreover, there seemed to be an inexplicable feeling that was guiding her. This is the one for her in this life. Mo Qingwu was young, but she was deeply in love with Chu Yang. Moreover, there seemed to be an inexplicable feeling guiding her. This is the one for her in this life. And Chu Yang was also very meticulous towards her, even to the extent of disregarding his own safety. Over time, Mo Qingwu had already positioned herself as Chu Yang's wife and regarded herself as such. Chula said angrily, who's your little aunt? As she spoke, she ran to Zi Sheqing's side and shook her. Big sister-in-law, look. This little girl actually wants to snatch your position. 700 additional chapters. I can't write anymore today. My brain is a mess and I have a splitting headache. I need 3 more chapters. After double the monthly votes, I'll update double the chapters. Thank you, everyone. And I beg for monthly votes. To be continued. Chapter 1062. Mo Qingwu exclaimed again. She looked at Chu Yang with tears in her eyes and said, Brother Chu Yang, is this your wife? Chu Yang smiled bitterly and spread his hands. He said jokingly, your brother Chu Yang doesn't have a wife yet. I want to marry her, but she doesn't want to. She doesn't like me, so I can only give up. Mo Qingwu perked up and said excitedly, I like you. Chu Yang laughed and beamed. Luckily, there's still little Wu who likes me. Mo Qingwu smiled sweetly. The tips of her brows and the corners of her eyes immediately lit up. On the other side, Chula was shaking Zi Sheqing. Zi Sheqing was silent for a while and said, don't mess around. It won't be good if there's a misunderstanding. She turned her head and sized up Mo Qingwu with a warm gaze. Her eyes suddenly exposed a strange look. There was shock, and also some complex emotions. This little girl in front of her actually had innate spirit meridians. Heavenly yin body and innate spirit meridians. No wonder Bu Liuqing treated this little girl like a treasure. Such a physique was truly unique in the heavenly layer. This is Big Sister Z, Chu Yang explained. Big Sister Z. Hello. Mo Qingwu looked at Zi Sheqing timidly. She could feel the tyrannical aura from Zi Sheqing that filled the entire world. Hello. Zi Sheqing smiled gently. What a beautiful little girl. If you grow up, you'll be the most beautiful girl in the world. She took Mo Qingwu's hand and looked at her carefully. She said, since we've met, it must be fate. Mo Qingwu. Mo Qingwu, one dance moves the heavens. What a good name, the heavens. No matter how you dance. Red clothes like blood, dancing the heavens. She laughed. Since we've met and you've called me big sister, then I'll give you a gift. She frowned slightly. There was a light purple energy moving around her body. Then, Zi Sheqing raised her hand gently. Her white jade-like finger touched Mo Qingwu's forehead. Mo Qingwu only felt a wave of unfamiliar information burrowing into her mind. Zi Sheqing retracted her finger and took 2 steps back. She panted slightly and smiled. Chu Yang looked at her with a questioning gaze. Zi Sheqing smiled faintly and said, her 2 masters have laid a very solid foundation for her, so solid that it's terrifying to the point that she can practice martial arts on such a foundation. Any cultivation technique was a piece of cake for him. However, those 2 were the ones who couldn't get out. Therefore, Mo Qingwu cultivated according to their cultivation methods. At the end of the road, you can only reach the level of those 2. Even if you surpass them, you will still be limited by the heavens. That's why I gave her a set of cultivation method incantations. When her cultivation breaks through the boundary between immortal and mortal, she will be able to activate this set of incantations. To cultivate a more powerful martial art, Zi Sheqing looked at Chu Yang deeply. If you want her to accompany you as you traverse the heavens and dance the heavenly palaces, she'll only have the capital if she has this cultivation technique. Moving unhindered above the heavens, dancing in the heavens? Chu Yang repeated in a murmur. Zi Sheqing said with a half-smile, of course, the heavenly palaces I'm talking about are not this heavenly continent. Chu Yang pondered and said, Big Sister Z means that we have to rush out of this world. Go to another plane. Zi Sheqing turned her face away and ignored him. However, he still felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. So, he snorted heavily. This snort. It was really impressive. Chu Yang heard this snort and just shrunk his neck. But there were others outside who also heard this snort. Their hearts trembled instantly. The auction outside was still going on. At this moment, the Xiao clan, Chu clan, and Chen clan were bidding for a 10,000-year-old black blood crystal lotus. At this moment, the Chen clan had already bid 50,000 purple crystals and a large piece of nightmare silver worth about 40,000 purple crystals. The highest value of this 10,000-year-old black blood crystal lotus was only 50,000 purple crystals. Logically speaking, 50,000 purple crystals and the nightmare silver worth 40,000 purple crystals had already far exceeded its original value. The auctioneer was already counting down and ready to drop the hammer. But at this moment, from the box that everyone was paying close attention to, a voice that made the big clans tremble suddenly sounded. Snort. The second grandmaster of the Chen clan, Chen Mengkai, was in a predicament. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Big sister, I've already offered double the price. What are you still snorting for? Helpless, he could only wave his hands with tears in his eyes. That younger brother of the Chen clan almost cried as he hurriedly shouted, the Chen clan offers 100,000 purple crystals and a piece of nightmare silver. This sentence was just in time. That auctioneer was counting. 1, 2, when the Chen clan said this sentence, the auctioneer could no longer stop his mouth and continued to count. 3, sold. Boom. The hammer fell. After it fell, he realized that he seemed to be a little too anxious. But in the box, there was really no more snorting. Although Chen Mengkai felt the pinch, he also heaved a sigh of relief. That was really close. If Chen Mengkai knew that the powerful existence snorted just to spite someone, what would he think? Just for a snort, the Chen clan had thrown out 50,000 purple crystals for nothing. Zi Sheqing had also created a precedent in the heavens. Just a snort was worth 50,000 purple crystals. The auction was still going on. Elixirs were continuously brought out. Xi Xieching also stopped snorting. But with the lesson from the Chen clan this time, no one dared to lower the price. They became even more spirited. But in fact, everyone was already distracted. Especially since Mo Qingwu had suddenly appeared. She had shouted elder brother Chu Yang, which had shaken the entire hall. Moreover, she had rushed over with tears of joy. The name Chu Yang had suddenly become more and more important in the eyes of the big clans. His sister was the disciple of a super powerful expert. Ning Tianya and Bu Liuqing's younger brother were so attached to him. Just these two things were enough to make the hearts of the experts palpitate. And with Chu Yang's appearance this time, there were a few more experts under him. With 3 super powerful experts as his backing, the worried looks on the faces of the supreme martial artists became more and more intense. They could imagine that it was another superpower. It was about to rise in this heaven's continent. It was unstoppable. But his rise would definitely cut off a huge piece of meat from the current situation of the big clans. This proved that the big clans were declining, and this situation was intolerable to the big clans. Yi Di's face darkened. He pondered for a long time and said, "Shiyu, go and inform the big clans. After the auction, the Yi clan will host a banquet to invite the second grandmaster of the various clans to give an explanation to the big clans about the battle that night." Yi Shiyu bowed and replied, "Yes." Then he walked out. Yi Di looked at Yi Shiyu's figure walking out with a complicated gaze. Finally, his gaze darkened, as if he had made up his mind about something. He gritted his teeth lightly and his eyes became 2 dark and deep pits. The faces of the elders of the big clans also darkened. The scene where Mo Qingwu's red figure dashed towards Chu Yang. These people all saw it. Mo Qingwu of course didn't know what kind of intense shock it brought to the big clans when she flew over with her true feelings. What was even more unexpected was that she flew over in public. It almost set the pattern for the heavens. But this pounce made the big clans wary at the same time. Because there were 2 supreme martial artists behind her that no one dared to provoke. Ning Tianya and Bu Liuqing. She pounced over, which was equivalent to the 2 supreme martial artists falling over too. How big the impact was. After receiving Yi Di's message, the second grandmasters were all relieved. They all expressed their agreement. After the auction, they would definitely go over and accept Yi Di's explanation. Actually, everyone knew in their hearts. The Yi clan was the pure victim of what happened that night. They needed the big clans to entertain them. Why would they take the initiative to give an explanation to the big clans? Yi Di's explanation was just a reason, a pretext. The real explanation at this banquet. It was definitely something else, Chu Yang's matter. Following that, the elixirs in the auction came one after another. They were all bought back by the big clans at a high price that was definitely beyond their value. While their hearts were bleeding from the pain, they threw away money without a change in expression. They even pretended to be happy. This kind of auction was definitely unimaginable to anyone who saw it. People who had not experienced it would definitely not be able to understand this feeling. This auction also broke the record of the highest transaction amount in the heavenly layer continent in the past 100,000 years. Not to mention those rare items, just the purple crystals alone were worth a total of 5 million pieces. If the big clans knew that the real owner of these elixirs was not Xi Xieching but Chu Yang. If they knew that these purple crystals had actually fallen into Chu Yang's hands. If they knew that Chu Yang was their biggest enemy, the Tribulation Swordmaster. The 8 second grandmasters would probably have the thought of cutting their own throats on the spot. Many years later, this auction would become a legend in the heavenly layer. Countless records were created. An auction with the highest number of elixirs. An auction with the highest number of experts participating in the auction. An auction with the most grievances in history. An auction with the highest transaction amount. The host was as rigid as a zombie. But on the surface, it was the auction with the most enthusiastic atmosphere. An auction with the most money spent in vain. An auction with the most spendthrift. An auction with the most spendthrifts even though they knew clearly in their heart. Of course, The most important one was the auction where the last Tribulation Sword Master completely rose to power, because all the income from this auction went into the pockets of the Tribulation Sword Master. With this financial foundation, the Tribulation Sword Master's wealth had already surpassed any big clan. Such a strong foundation supported the Tribulation Sword Master and his brothers to advance their cultivation and trample on the heavenly layer. In the end, they even rushed out of the heavenly layer, including elixirs, wealth, cultivation, and the final form of weapons. This auction was the biggest contributor. And the most ironic thing was that these items all came from the big clans that were the archenemies of the Tribulation Sword Master, and they were willing to take them out themselves. This kind of supernatural and unimaginable thing caused everyone who heard it to involuntarily spit out a mouthful of blood. When I woke up in the afternoon, I called a Jen and was lectured by him. Cough, cough, I didn't think it through. I was only thinking about the annual monthly votes list. It was indeed a little wrong. Cough, cough. Extremely awkward. It's all in the past. You don't need to care about it. One phone call and we talked for almost an hour. The content was more cheerful. Of course, the most cheerful thing was that the guy was talking non-stop on the phone when he suddenly stopped talking. I was puzzled, and then I heard someone hurriedly explaining to someone. It's a guy. It's really a guy. What's so strange about talking for a long time? Soaring Wind is really a guy. Oh my god, it's really a guy. I spat on the spot. Then, I pinched my nose and snorted twice. It said that the guy is in a terrible fix right now. Chapter 1063. But then, something even more shocking happened. When the auction was nearing its end, 3 people walked out of Heaven Room 3. Yu Lingxue, Feng Yuro, and their disciple, Wu Qianqian, walked toward Mortal Room 3. Even someone as calm as the Knight the Arch widened his eyes at that moment. As for the others, they were even more shocked. Someone was just about to exclaim when his mouth was covered by the person beside him. Yu Lingxue walked to the door of Mortal Room 3 and stopped. Then, he asked, "Elder, may we enter?" Inside, that cold female voice said, "Please." Then, the Moonbreeze couple walked in with their disciple. Once they went in, they didn't come out. They didn't come out all the way until the auction ended. The hearts of those from the big clans instantly became heavy. Yi Di stared at Mortal Room 3 with a heavy heart. No one knew what he was thinking. Suddenly, he stood up and walked toward Heaven Room 1. This auction that was so lively that it was almost suffocating finally came to an end. The big clans left the auction house almost without looking back. As if they were running away. There wasn't even the slightest bit of excitement from returning with a full load. Every one of them looked gloomy, as if someone in their family had died. Chu Yang and the rest naturally stayed behind. Under the invitation of the 5th elder of the Medicine Valley, Chu Yang came to the warehouse of the auction house very proudly. The moment he entered, he was dazzled by the brilliant purple light all over the floor. Such a huge warehouse was actually almost filled to the brim with purple crystals and all kinds of rare minerals exchanged this time. Chu Yang only felt dazzled. Rubbing his hands, he said, "These are all mine." The 5th elder looked at him with a complicated expression. Then, he looked at the pile of purple crystals in front of him and nodded. "As long as you fulfill your promise to the Medicine Valley, these are all yours." Chu Yang was stunned. Promise? What promise? Can't you just deduct it directly from the auction quota? Back then, Chu Yang had promised that as long as the Medicine Valley hosted this auction, apart from the auction commission, he would sell to the Medicine Valley 1/10 of the medicines auctioned this time. The 5th elder looked a little embarrassed. "I don't know what happened. All of the medicines were auctioned off. Our Medicine Valley thought that we had kept it, but after the auction, we realized that we didn't keep it at all. Now, we don't even have a single stalk of spirit herb left. We've sold them all." At this moment, the zombie-faced auctioneer also walked over and said rigidly, "It's me." I bid smoothly, and then, I kept urging them, while the 5th elder and the great elder were discussing something. After they were done, the 5th elder and the great elder were discussing something. Only then did I realize that I didn't keep it for myself. Chu Yang fainted. How could there be such a thing? You just casually took all the photos? He even auctioned off his own share. He was the best. Chu Yang retreated in defeat. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "Then, what do you mean?" The fifth elder stammered, "We think, we can." Chu Yang looked at the old man patiently. He encouraged, "Speak boldly." The fifth elder finally said, "We don't want the commission from the auction either. We'll exchange it for the elixirs. Then, we'll fork out money to buy your elixirs." Cough cough. 100 stalks. No. 50 stalks would do too. Of course. The precondition is that you still have spirit herbs in hand. The fifth elder's face was full of anticipation. If at this moment, Chu Yang said, "I don't have any more, I'll give it all to you," the fifth elder would probably smash his head against the wall and die on the spot. Generally, the commission from an auction was based on a 5% commission. Don't underestimate this 5%. If Chu Yang's current transaction amount were to include those minerals and metals, the total value was more than 120 million. 5% would be 1 million purple crystals. It was definitely a terrifyingly large number. There was such a good deal. He didn't want the commission anymore. Exchange it for the elixirs. Chu Yang frowned and said, "There are still some elixirs. However, the fifth elder must also know. What I say doesn't count." The fifth elder felt relieved and his whole body relaxed. He said, "It's good that there are elixirs. Of course, that friend of yours, that almighty person is here. We also know that. Naturally, we won't let you suffer a loss in terms of price." Chu Yang said apologetically, "I'm really sorry." The fifth elder comforted him. "It's nothing. It's not up to you." Chu Yang said sincerely, "You're right." He sighed. "Currently, there are less than 300 elixirs left. There's no harm in selling them all to you." In Chu Yang's conflicted space, the elixirs from the Black Blood Forest naturally wouldn't be just these 300 elixirs. Speaking of which, there were still 3,000 elixirs. But how could he tell the truth? However, this batch of elixirs was originally reserved for my own use. Therefore, they are more high-end. In terms of price, it will also. Chu Yang deliberated and said, "So, you have to be mentally prepared." The fifth elder became excited. No problem. He thought to himself that this was really a blessing in disguise. How could the elixirs that he had left be ordinary? They would definitely be top-grade treasures. He didn't expect that there would be such benefits after selling them all. As for the price, there's even less of a problem. Our Medicine Valley has collected countless purple crystals over the years. They'll rot if left to rot. We'll take as much as you have," the fifth elder said heartily. Chu Yang was delighted. This old man was really cute. He was stretching his neck to be taken advantage of just like that. And he even revealed an important piece of news. Who knows how many purple crystals there are? They'll rot if left to rot. Unlucky. Since they're already rotting, it'll be a waste if I don't spend some on your behalf. I'll go and ask for instructions." After Chu Yang said this, he rushed out in a hurry. Then, he went to the private room and walked out again. He went back to the warehouse. No problem. That senior said that as long as the price doesn't disappoint her, there's no problem. The fifth elder's face twitched. He thought to himself, that woman is really greedy. Even the big clans buy elixirs at double the price. Don't disappoint her, then. Does this mean that she wants double the price too? That's too expensive. Brother Chu, please take out the elixirs first. Let's see what you think. The fifth elder asked. No problem. Chu Yang waved his hand readily. Instantly, a huge pile of elixirs scattered on the ground. Around them, the people of the Medicine Valley swarmed over like a swarm of bees. At once, there were endless exclamations. The elixirs that Chu Yang took out this time were definitely of a higher grade than those that were auctioned previously. The fifth elder's hands trembled. His face flushed red with excitement and then turned snowy white. His body swayed and he sat down on his butt. Moaning, he said, "So many good things." Chu Yang smiled and said, "There are 310 of them." Since he said that there were only 300 plus, he couldn't take out too much. Chu Yang also regretted it. He might as well sell more. He could only say 310. Within 400, it was also 300 plus. 310. The fifth elder's face twitched again. Even if one elixir was calculated at 100,000 purple crystals, it was still 3,100,000 purple crystal. And this was just his own estimate of the market price. That woman wanted double the price. The Medicine Valley did have a lot of purple crystals, but if they took out 80 million purple crystals at once, they would probably owe a huge debt. From then on, the people of the Medicine Valley would have to beg for food. Chu Yang observed the situation. Knowing that the Medicine Valley probably couldn't handle this batch of elixirs in one go, he smiled and said, "That senior originally wanted double the price. Or double and a half." The fifth elder looked like he was struck by lightning. Double? Double and a half? Damn it, how was he supposed to live? Chu Yang changed his tone and said, "However, I argued with that senior on what was right. I said, if not for the Medicine Valley's organization, it would really be difficult for us to sell these elixirs. Even if we did sell them, we wouldn't be able to fetch such a high price." The fifth elder nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes. And then? What did that senior say? Chu Yang said, "That senior said, although what you said made sense. But the Medicine Valley also earned 1 million purple crystals from selling this batch of elixirs. They didn't lose out." The fifth elder said dejectedly, "A mere million." Thinking about it, what the other party said made sense. Although the selling price was high, the Medicine Valley's commission had also increased. What was wrong with that? He couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Chu Yang said, "At that time, I said that I was being ungrateful. They did help us after all. This, no matter what, we should at least give them some face, right?" The fifth elder blinked his small eyes and looked at Chu Yang. Then that senior said, "Since that's the case, then this batch of elixirs can be sold according to the market price. However, the change has to be made up. In other words, she only needs 40 million purple crystals. In addition, after deducting the 1 million purple crystals from the auction procedures, in reality, the Medicine Valley only needs to pay 34 million purple crystals to get all these elixirs back." Chu Yang said sanctimoniously. They were clearly only worth this price, but Chu Yang had gone a few rounds, and now that he said this, it was as if he was doing the Medicine Valley a huge favor. "Really?" The fifth elder asked incredulously, saving more than half in one go. He was so happy that he almost fainted. 34 million purple crystals was an incomparably huge sum, but the Medicine Valley could still afford it. Although it would hurt them a little, it wouldn't shake their foundation. Most importantly, with these elixirs, the Medicine Valley's reputation would only grow bigger and bigger. Wasn't it easy to earn purple crystals? Really? Chu Yang nodded affirmatively. That's great, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This sum of money is no problem, no problem. The fifth elder was almost jumping for joy. His gaze was also full of eagerness and gratitude as he looked at Chu Yang, making Chu Yang shiver. 34 million purple crystals. I'll pay immediately. I. Quickly go find the Valley Master. Quickly go find the High Priest and get the storage ring from him. Bring all the purple crystals over. Bring it over. The fifth elder shouted, "Hurry," as if he was afraid that the Almighty would change his mind if he was too late. He grabbed Chu Yang's hand with tears of gratitude and shook it vigorously. "Brother Chu, your great kindness. I. The Medicine Valley will forever remember it in our hearts. I hereby make a promise, the doors of the Medicine Valley will always be open for you. I'm so grateful to you." To be continued. Chapter 1064. When Chu Yang left the warehouse of the auction house, it was definitely a fruitful trip. In the tribulation space, the warehouse specially opened by the Sword Spirit to store purple crystals was completely full. The Sword Spirit had no choice but to open up another big warehouse to store purple crystals. In the tribulation space, all kinds of rare minerals were piled up like mountains. The tribulation sword was devouring them crazily. But even at such a crazy speed, Chu Yang estimated that it would take at least 3 to 5 days for it to finish. The elixir garden in the tribulation space didn't expand much. But the medicine for Chu Le-er's treatment had been gathered. Chu Yang finally had one less thing on his mind. He planned to treat Chu Le-er's injuries and recover her body after he went back tonight. And then cultivate as soon as possible. During this period of time, Zi Xueqing had been laying the foundation for Chu Le-er. Once her body recovered and she started cultivating, with the help of Zi Xueqing's heaven-defying ability, Chu Le-er would probably be able to create a cultivation miracle. After returning to the private room, Zhong Xian said a few words, and everyone stood up and walked out. Feng Yuro, Yu Lingxue, and Wu Qianqian followed behind. Because Zi Xueqing had sent them an invitation, the Feng and Yu couple naturally wouldn't give up such an opportunity. As for Wu Qianqian, the more time she spent with Chu Yang, the better. How could she disagree? Along the way, Mo Qingwu hung on Chu Yang's arm, chatting and laughing as they walked. She was full of joy along the way. Wu Qianqian walked behind, looking enviously at Mo Qingwu's arm hanging on Chu Yang's arm. She was in a daze. Wu Qianqian still didn't realize that this little girl in front of her was the key to her and Chu Yang's relationship. She only thought that the relationship between Chu Yang and Mo Qingwu was probably similar to that of brother and sister. However, who would have known that the entanglement between the two of them would not simply be a relationship of brother and sister? When Chu Yang walked out of the auction house, he was suddenly stunned. There was a person standing in front of him with a smile. Smiling. Looking at Chu Yang. His green robe fluttered, 3 wisps of beard, hands behind his back, looking indescribably confident and relaxed. Calm and collected. That kind of aura of having the world in his hands was clearly reflected. Diwu Qingru. Chu Yang's heart shook. Diwu Qingru smiled slightly. Chu Yang let go of Mo Qingwu's embrace and motioned for everyone to wait for a moment. He walked over. Waiting for me? Chu Yang asked with a smile. Waiting for you. Diwu Qingru smiled faintly. Both of them chuckled. Congratulations. Diwu Qingru said, you have finally gained a foothold in the upper 3 heavens. Thanks a lot. Chu Yang smiled. I'm not as stable as you. Diwu Qingru shook his head and smiled bitterly. 1 sentence. Chu Yang listened attentively. Don't underestimate any enemy. Diwu Qingru insipidly said, the enemy's foundation is much stronger than what you've seen. Chu Yang nodded solemnly. We cooperated a few days ago, but we didn't succeed. Diwu Qingru insipidly said, however. Next time, let's plan properly. Chu Yang nodded. He said, that's right. We need to plan carefully. Diwu Qingru smiled. He turned around and walked away. After a few steps, he disappeared into the surging crowd. Chu Yang stood there and chewed carefully. After a long time, he shook his head and smiled, turning back. That person is Diwu Qingru? Zi Xueqing asked softly. Yes. Chu Yang said. He is indeed not simple. Zi Xueqing said meaningfully, you have to be careful when dealing with this person. Chu Yang nodded and said, our interactions are only in Tianji City. After this, it will be the ends of the world and the corners of the sea. If Tianji doesn't come, I won't scheme against him anymore. Zi Xueqing smiled and said, that's right. Your strength lies in being calculative. But this person is full of tricks. Therefore, if you were to compete with him on one matter, you would definitely be able to win. However, when it comes to the overall situation, you might not necessarily be his opponent. How could Chu Yang not know this? If it was only one matter, no matter which aspect of his scheming, he would not be weaker than Diwu Qingru. But if it was 10 matters or 10 matters at the same time, then the only one who could go against Diwu Qingru at the same time and be well organized in all aspects was Mo Tianji. Zi Xueqing turned back and said to Yu Lingxue, Brother Yu, please make a trip and invite Supreme Martial Artist Bu to the Orchard Palace. Yu Lingxue said, okay. The white figure disappeared without a trace in an instant. What? Chu Yang asked, puzzled. There are some things that I want to talk about while there is still a chance. Zi Xueqing smiled lightly. Her heart was extremely complicated. She thought to herself, You fool, I am making the best use of my time to pave the way for your future before I leave. The power of the Tao state is getting stronger and stronger. Now, even when I am not fighting, I can already vaguely feel the power of the Tao state in the vast sky. Who knows when it will leave? I can only do my best. If I can do one more thing for you, I will do one more thing. Chu Yang was silent for a while. As if he could feel Zi Sheqing's feelings, he finally asked bitterly, "Can't you not leave?" Zi Sheqing's heart softened and ached. She forcibly suppressed her emotions and shook her head coldly. No. Chu Yang lowered his head and did not speak anymore. Mo Qingwu asked Chu Yang quietly, "Is big sister Zi leaving?" Chu Yang sighed and held her little hand. He said, "In life, there is no banquet that doesn't end." His voice was filled with melancholy. Zi Sheqing's ears twitched and she felt a sharp pain in her heart. But she floated forward expressionlessly and walked to the front of the group to lead the way. Mo Qingwu blinked and said, "Does brother Chu Yang want big sister Zi to stay?" Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, "Yes, I'm also very conflicted. I want her to stay. If she stays, I am afraid there will be danger." "Very great danger?" Mo Qingwu asked. "Very great danger. Her life is in danger." Chu Yang sighed again. "Brother Chu Yang, you like her?" Mo Qingwu asked a little dejectedly. Chu Yang did not deny it. He nodded and said seriously, "But brother Chu Yang still likes Qingwu the most." Mo Qingwu said happily, "Then I am relieved." Suddenly, she pulled Chu Yang's head. She put her petal-like lips close to his ear and said, "If brother Chu Yang really does not want big sister Zi to leave, I have a way." Chu Yang asked curiously, "What way?" Mo Qingwu bit her lips and hesitated for a while. Finally, she said softly, "If you do it with her, how will she leave?" Chu Yang staggered. He felt that his legs had gone soft, and he almost fell to the ground. Zi Sheqing, who was walking at the front of the group, also staggered. Then, her delicate ears turned red. She walked forward quickly. Feng Yuro, who was walking beside her, was very strange. She asked, "Elder, what's wrong?" Zi Sheqing exhaled. She said, "Nothing, haha." She walked forward quickly. Chu Yang knocked on Mo Qingwu's head and said in a low voice, "You evil little girl, where did you hear such a mess?" Mo Qingwu giggled. She cried out in pain and said, "Master found me a masseuse. We often chat." "Masseuse? Male or female?" Chu Yang was nervous. "Of course it's a female." Mo Qingwu stared at him with her mischievous eyes. She smiled like a little fox who had succeeded. "Brother Chu Yang, I often tell her about you." Ha ha ha. Speaking of this, she suddenly blushed. It turned out that after she got familiar with that masseuse, because Mo Qingwu talked about Chu Yang every day, the masseuse said one day, "You bastard. If you are worried, when you grow up, you can do it with him first. Then you won't be able to run away." Now, Mo Qingwu was thinking about this. She thought, when can I have the capital to do it with brother Chu Yang first? After turning a corner, Nangong Shifeng and the others bade farewell to Chu Yang. After this auction, there would definitely be some movements. The Nangong brothers needed to keep an eye on them and find out the latest information at any time. To be able to make this trip in this lifetime, I can hold my head high, Nangong Shifeng said. It could be seen that he was in a good mood. I, Nangong Shifeng, have never been so glorious and glorious in my life. Today, I have fulfilled the wish of my whole life, haha. Chu Yang was silent. After a long while, he said lightly, "You will be even more glorious in the future. Shifeng, after the medicine banquet ends, I will help you and your brothers recover." Nangong Shifeng's eyes turned hot. He held Chu Yang's hand and shook it gratefully. Without saying anything, he turned around and left with his brothers. "I'll follow and take a look." To prevent any mishaps, Wei Wuyan said goodbye to Chu Yang silently and followed them. Since coming here, Chu Yang had been racking his brains to think of ways to help Wei Wuyan recover. However, Wei Wuyan's mood became more and more depressed, and he became even more silent. Everyone could see that there was a sense of lifelessness in his body. Zi Sheqing could only sigh about this. Wei Wuyan's heart was dead. Now, there were only two goals left in his mind. To take revenge and to repay kindness. To take revenge for his wife and children, and to repay Chu Yang for saving his life. Other than these, he had no other wishes. Once he thought that these two wishes were fulfilled, Wei Wuyan would not hesitate to kill him at any time. Regarding this, Chu Yang was helpless. Let's follow and take a look. Wn Renjie saw Chu Yang's worry and said, "All right." Chu Yang said, "Don't let him do anything stupid." Wn Renjie laughed and said, "Fourth brother, let's take a look at Wei Wuyan for a while. If he needs it, we want to accompany him to travel the world to fulfill his last wish. Later, if there's nothing else, I'm afraid we'll leave together. We'll accompany him to travel the world to take revenge. We don't feel at ease if he's alone." Wn Renjie smiled and said, "We don't have any ties with Wei Wuyan. Perhaps only old bachelors like us can understand each other's hearts. We don't have any other wishes. As brothers, Wei Wuyan's wish is our wish." Chapter 1065. Wn Renjie and Wei Wuyan had fought for half a generation, and had fought to the death dozens of times, but they appreciated each other. Wn Renjie could empathize with Wei Wuyan's feelings. Wei Wuyan wanted revenge, and Wn Renjie had long decided to help him fulfill his wish. As they were of the same age, Wn Renjie deeply understood Wei Wuyan's feelings. Chu Yang was startled and said, "Okay." He knew that Wn Renjie was bidding him farewell by saying this. Chu Yang was grateful that these three people came to help him. But he could also tell that these three people really couldn't relax in front of Zi Xiecheng, Bu Liuqing, and Moonbreeze. They couldn't be compared to Dong Wushang and the others. Dong Wushang and the others' cultivations weren't low, but they were still young. But Wn Renjie and the other two were already very old. They wanted to put down their pride, but they couldn't. They wanted to ask for advice, but they were also embarrassed. As time passed, they felt more and more awkward, and wanted to leave. "But, if you have free time, please remember to come and visit me," Chu Yang said seriously. "Of course." Wn Renjie's eyes revealed deep emotions. He said in a deep voice, "Brother. If you're well, maybe we won't see each other in our lives. But if you're in trouble, we'll come and accompany you even if we have to risk our lives." He saw the worry in Chu Yang's eyes. He patted Chu Yang's shoulder and smiled. "We're all old loaches in the martial world. You don't have to worry about us. If we only want to stay alive, even Supreme Martial Artist Bu will have a hard time finding us." "Ha ha." Chu Yang forced a smile. He took out 4 incomplete versions of heavy pills and handed them over. He whispered, "If you have life-threatening injuries, take this. There's one more. For Wei Wuyan." Wn Renjie looked at him deeply, and his eyes showed signs of turning red. But he quickly turned his head away and laughed. "Since that's the case, I'll accept it." He stretched out his arms and gave Chu Yang a big hug. He patted Chu Yang's back and said, "Fourth brother, take care." Then, Cheng Duing stepped forward. He smiled slightly. "Fourth brother." He turned around and left. He wanted to say something, but just as the words were about to leave his mouth, his heart ached and he couldn't say anything. He decided not to say anything and just turned around and left. Bao Buhuan hugged Chu Yang tightly and said, "Fourth brother, what big brother said is what I want to say." Chu Yang was startled. Suddenly, his heart ached. "Brother, if you're doing well, perhaps we'll never see each other again. But if you're in trouble, even if we have to risk our lives, we'll come and accompany you." The three of them bade farewell to Chu Le. Wn Renjie caressed Chu Le's hair. For a long time, he didn't say anything. He wanted to say something, but he held it back. But he forced himself to hold back. Finally, he let out a long sigh and said softly, "Le, you must be happy." Chu Le's eyes reddened, and tears streamed down her cheeks. Wn Renjie looked at her lovingly and wiped away her tears. He chuckled, but his voice was trembling. He wanted to say, "If I have a great-granddaughter who looks like you, Le, you let me taste true kinship and remind me of the beautiful memories of the past. I'm really grateful to you." But, in the end, he didn't say anything. "Everyone, the wind is cold today. In the future, We'll definitely meet again if we're fated. The three of us will take our leave now. WN Rengier clasped his fists towards the crowd and turned to leave. The figures of the three of them walked further and further away, but they never looked back. Chu Yang watched the three of them leave, turned into a street and disappeared. Suddenly, he felt that a dividing line had appeared in his life. Here, the current him was cut off from the him who had just arrived at the upper three heavens. It had come to an end. There's bound to be separation in life. Zi Sheqing sensed his disappointment and said, actually, it's a good thing that they left. The cultivation of these three people isn't very high. And their meridians are almost solidified, and there's almost no room for improvement. If they followed you, sooner or later, they'd be implicated by you and lose their lives. Now that they've left, you should be happy for them. Chu Yang was shocked. Then, he smiled bitterly and said, I've also thought of this point, but the feelings in my heart have never left. In the eyes of the world, the three of them aren't good people, but they're really good to me and Le. Zi Sheqing smiled lightly and said, good people and bad people. Can we really distinguish them in this world? We can. Chu Yang said seriously, in my heart, law enforcement officers like Han Xiaoran are good people. And some people who are sincere, even if they're enemies, even if they want to be killed, they're also good people. Of course, those who are good to us are even more good people. I just realized that sometimes, you're also very naive. Zi Sheqing couldn't help but laugh. Chu Yang said it very straightforwardly. But he said everyone's evaluation of good and bad people. Actually, everyone evaluated good and bad people in this way. Everyone returned to the orchard palace. Chu Le obediently went to make tea, and Mo Qingwu also ran over to help. The two little lollies bickered as they busied themselves, chattering away. Everyone who saw them understood and laughed. Chu Le and Mo Qingwu walked out one after another, one holding a teapot and the other holding a teacup. Instantly, the hall was filled with the fragrance of tea. Not long after, Bu Liuqing and Yu Lingxue came together. Everyone gathered around a large round table and sat down. In order, they were Zi Sheqing, Bu Liuqing, Yu Lingxue, Feng Yuro, Wu Qianqian, Chu Yang, Mo Qingwu, Dong Wushang, Rui Butong, Mo Lei and Chu Le. There were exactly 11 people. Everyone had a cup of tea in front of them, and the fragrance of the tea wafted up. They didn't say a word, and were all waiting. Everyone didn't know why Zi Sheqing had gathered everyone here. Only Bu Liuqing had a faint feeling in his heart, and his expression was actually somewhat fervent. I've gathered everyone here today because of a sentence from supreme martial artist Bu. Zi Sheqing smiled lightly, and her eyes darted around the faces of Feng and Yu. With a wave of her hand, everyone instantly felt an invisible barrier isolating the entire orchard palace from this world. While this barrier was in place, no one in the entire heavenly layer would be able to sense or eavesdrop on what was going on inside. Not even the slightest bit of movement. Even the few experts standing at the peak of the heavens would definitely not be able to hear anything. Bu Liuqing, Feng Yuro and Yu Lingxue revealed looks of admiration at the same time. Just this simple move was something that the few of them would definitely not be able to do. Zi Sheqing continued indifferently. Today at the auction house, supreme martial artist Bu once asked me, what would it be like above the heavens? Once Zi Sheqing said this, Feng Yuro and Yu Lingxue instantly straightened up. Everyone else also raised their heads and looked at Zi Sheqing. What would it be like above the heavens? This was the unsolved mystery of the heavens continent. For 100,000 years, only the legendary two supreme martial artists, Chen Feng and Liu Yun, had transcended this world and gone to the bigger world. But this was only a legend after all. And after Chen Feng and Liu Yun left, they never came back. Therefore, no one had any evidence to prove whether the bigger world existed or not. Regarding this matter, everyone was actually uncertain. But today, they finally heard Zi Sheqing talk about this matter. Everyone held their breaths, fearing that they would miss out on a single word. Bu Liuqing did not even care that Mo Qingwu was snuggling in Chu Yang's arms now. He pricked up his ears and listened attentively. Because he could feel the existence of the bigger world. Just half a step and he would be able to cross it. Therefore, What Zi Sheqing was going to say today was extremely important to him and Ning Tianya. Chu Yang held Mo Qingwu's waist and looked at Zi Sheqing with bright eyes. Only he knew that what Zi Sheqing was going to say now was really, for him. In this, it contained all of Zi Sheqing's wishes and hope. Everyone knows about the heavens. The heavens continent is the name of this continent. Zi Sheqing's voice was very slow. Therefore, this continent has become the heavens in everyone's eyes. But is this the real heavens? If it is, then why are there only 3 heavens? Her voice was indifferent as she said, maybe some people will say that 100,000 years ago, that powerful person folded the heavens and caused it to collapse. Only 3 heavens were created. But, Brother Bu might know, how can a person at this level make such a low-level mistake? Bu Liuqing sighed and nodded. He said somewhat bleakly, that's right. Usually, at our level, we would not do things that we are not completely sure of. But that person had the ability to fold a continent but made a huge mistake. This is one of the things that we have been puzzling over for a long time. Zi Sheqing said, therefore, that person made a mistake by folding the heavens and folding it into 3 layers, leaving behind a sword of calamity to maintain the stability of this continent. All these don't make sense. Zi Sheqing said slowly. Zi Sheqing must have thought about these questions many times. Therefore, although she spoke slowly, her words were clear and organized. All these shouldn't have happened. But they did. It's definitely not because that powerful person's ability was limited, nor because he made a mistake. He had other motives. But this motive is worth thinking about. Zi Sheqing's tone was very heavy when she spoke. She didn't look at Chu Yang. But Chu Yang immediately knew that Zi Sheqing was reminding him of something important. This could be a conspiracy, or it could be a kind of expectation. There's also, one, Zi Sheqing said lightly, as the Sword of Calamity's master. Therefore, the Sword of Calamity's masters have all disappeared. Disappearing is definitely not the end. But, they are not qualified. So they were eliminated. Zi Sheqing's heavy words shocked everyone at the same time. They were not qualified. They were eliminated. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.